Hey, welcome everybody to the after show for the Inspiring Philosophy and Ocean Keltoi debate, or discussion as it was, on pagan influences, pagan influence on Christmas, and I think they both did an exceptional job on it. Oh, hang on, I got some background noise. That's me. I kind of want to have a little after show on it because I don't know if a lot of questions were being asked or answered in the live chat. I saw a few things come up, but obviously not everything can be put into one discussion. So I figure on an after show, maybe you guys could actually ask them more in-depth questions as far as some of the pagan iconography in Christmas, because I do think that there's heavily influence across the board on all holidays, whether it be Easter or Christmas or whatever. And I do think Saturnalia does have a big influence on these holidays. But I was seeing some things in the live chat that I kind of wasn't sure about, like when it came to like Bacchus or Dionysus turning water into wine, being the predecessor or precursor for the idea that Jesus turned water into wine. Because from what I understand that, it wasn't even water to wine, it was water to gold. But anyways, let's kind of get into it. I got Inspiring Philosophy in here, I got Ocean, I got Sakakan, I got the room. So hola.
What's up?
What's
Hello.
up?
Hello.
Also, I want to say real quickly before we get into this that IP, I realized who you were when I started watching the Christmas videos that you had done before this conversation, and I had actually watched your Easter video some time ago and used a lot of the sources that you used in that in creating some of my arguments about Easter and some of the atheists using Easter paganism as kind of a blunt instrument against Christianity where it doesn't need to be used that way. And I thought it was a good source for me, and I thank you for making that video.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. Appreciate that a lot. I'm glad it helped.
Guys, do you think that even if there is pagan influence on Christmas, it distracts from the overall Christmas message? Now, I know that IP doesn't feel that way, and I think he's right. I don't think that if a Christian adheres to Christmas iconography. I think that's the word. Iconography. That would be the word. That I don't think God really cares one way or another, right? But do you think that it actually affects the mythos of the narrative of Jesus's resurrection or Jesus's existence, even as far as from a mythological standpoint or Jesus' mythicist standpoint?
I mean, it would have to actually show pagan influence in Christian theology, specifically the New Testament, to actually make that type of argument. I've done some videos regarding that, like on Dionysus, Horus. I just did one Friday where I uploaded on Osiris. So I mean, there would need to actually be influence of the New Testament, of the Gospels themselves, and Christian theology for that argument to actually have any kind of weight to it.
I did notice that both of you guys agreed, and I agreed on this as well with the Zeitgeist, that a lot of these things that I've seen, especially when it comes to these memes. Oh, well, Jesus was born on December 25th, but you know what? So was Horus. So it was Osiris and all these other things that I don't see any correlation of whatsoever.
The only December 25th birth that's even somewhat controversial is the cult of Mithra. And there's disagreement about it. Huge disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I did a video on Mithra, and I mean, there's really no evidence. I mean, Roger Beck, for example, stated that in truth, the only evidence for its celebration, the birthday of Invictus on that date, is in the calendar of Philocalus. Invictus, of course, Sol Invictus, Aurelian's sun god. It does not follow that a different earlier unofficial sun god, Sol Invictus Mithras, was necessarily or probably born on that day too. So there was a lot of controversy around that, but the Mithraic scholars don't actually say that Mithra was born on December 25th.
Right, and that's the Zeitgeist issue is one that we both have like huge agreements on. I think that I think that for different reasons we both really hate that thing, but I think the main reason we might agree on is Zeitgeist is just disrespectful to history, and it's based on bad sources and bad scholarship.
But do you think because of it, a lot of that still is proliferated around? That still a lot of times I see during Christmas season, these memes start coming up again, saying that all these correlations that I cannot find evidence for. And again, I'm trying to be objective. I'm an agnostic. I have no dog in this fight, but I do like to do my research, and I like to see if things are validatable. And I don't see any evidence for any of those memes whatsoever.
Right, and there really isn't. It's unfortunate. I mean, but people just put that around, and people think, well, if someone went to the time of making a meme, it must be true. And so I just get a lot of people just reasserting the same arguments, but there really is no evidence.
Yeah, that's how it works on the internet, isn't
I'm
it?
pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah, but the meme has got to be true. I'm not feeling very well today, so if I'm a little discordant, it's because I'm just not feeling very well at the moment. So forgive me, guys. It happens, but I really enjoyed their debates. I wanted to have an after show on it. So
what's really funny with the whole Zeitgeist thing is that like I watched the little movie there when it was on Netflix a couple years ago, I think, when it came out. Oh, sorry, how long ago was that? 3 or 4 years ago now? Probably longer. I don't know.
Long time.
Yeah,
Zeitgeist? Yeah, it's been out for like 10 years. Or something.
yeah, it's probably been a decade.
Yeah. I watched it on Netflix like 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, like it was one of those things where it was just like when I first watched it, I'm like, it's like, man, that is really interesting. How come we don't hear about this stuff too often? Like, why? Like this seems like really important knowledge, and it took me all of about 3 minutes to realize that the vast majority of the stuff that showed up in that movie was complete and utter bullshit.
Do we know who Dylan is?
I don't.
Dylan Caldwell.
I didn't give a link out except for very specific people.
Hey, IP.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, how you doing? Good to see you again.
It's great. This is the first time I've actually talked to you. So.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, you're like the favorite atheist who comments on my channel.
We've had long conversations.
That's funny.
My IQ has increased because of my conversation with IP.
Yeah, me too. Don't worry, I agree.
I disagree, but it's. I owe you a lot for like just like giving me the time of day.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
But IP, you're wrong. Frank's a Catholic.
Everyone keeps saying that. Like it's so freaking annoying.
He's skeptical. He doesn't even know about his own existence, and you think I'm joking. I'm not.
Well, yeah, I'm extreme skeptic, but like
extreme.
So, Steve, overall, what did you think of the debate?
Well, first, let me say real quick. Before we went on air, I was telling IP the same thing, Frank, that even though I kind of see some problems with IC's arguments, of course, you know, it's just what the internet does. I think he elevates it to the next level. I think he brings a lot of good arguments to the table, at least to be discussed. And I get tired of the old basal, you know, simple things of people saying, oh, well, theism is wrong because, you know, it's a mental illness, or, you know, atheism is wrong because of this, or those things are just so simplistic. I like to see a really well-defined argument that people can just talk about. So I'd like to say that I do like IP's way to go about that, even though I see some problems in some of his argumentation. But anyways,
I think, you know, I've watched IP's videos before, and you know, sorry, IP, I'm talking to you. I think you're not even here. I think most of them I see where you're coming from, but I think that the one video that I would probably kind of like, that kind of left me like dumbfounded, like, because it was I think it was Beneath You, was you did a video. I'm trying to remember.
It's the one that
it was like I'm trying to think. Does quantum physics, you know, what was it? Something about quantum physics disprove materialism or something like that.
Quantum physics debunks materialism.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have? Would you do you think that everything that you put forward in that video, you know, do you still stand by that, or do you think that you could, if you could do it again, you'd approach it a different way?
I'd probably reword some of the things I said in that. That's why I'm actually going to be redoing that video, I think in May-ish or something around that time. But I don't necessarily, I do, with the general premise of it, I still kind of believe. I'm curious, what was your main issue with it? I'm kind of confused on what you're asserting.
You know what? I wasn't expecting to come in here. I'd have to go back and I dig out the comment that I made on it like a while back. But you know, that's another discussion we can have later, or I could send it to you like in a private message or something when you get back to me.
How about we have another thing out another time specifically related to that? I'd be fascinated by that discussion, because I mean, my background was kind of in physics, so in a way.
Steve, do you want to go through everybody that's here? So because now we have like a large
yeah,
group of people, we can go through everybody and their opinions on the debate or the discussion. Really.
Yeah, let me do like my opinion at last, if I can. I don't know who Dylan is. I'm not going to show him until I know who he is. Cameron was your host, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just start off. I'll do him kind of last too. Holy Spackle, who IP probably doesn't know. I know everybody here, but Holy Spackle is a theist, so we'll get kind of her opinion first. Holy, did you watch the debate?
So I was looking for the debate, and when I found the debate, it was over. So I had to rewind parts of the debate.
I promoted it. I put it everywhere.
I'd love to hear your opinion on it after you watch it. Give it a whirl and then shoot me a message on Facebook afterwards.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I looked for it, and I was like, oh crap, and I missed it. And so I went around and saw some of it. I definitely will watch it though for sure. But I think Ocean and I have talked about this before, and I think that Christmas has pagan influences because Christianity is a evangelical religion that ties to different cultures, and it sort of well, I guess a lot of religions follow a calendar year, and you gotta excuse me, my husband's playing piano.
No problem. Okay, so
yeah.
Overall, though, you can't actually give an assessment, but overall, do you think that there is pagan influence on Christmas?
A little bit, but it's influence, and it's not derived from paganism. So, like, a lot of religions have very similar rhythms to feasts and the celebrations and things like that, and so it kind of makes sense that things kind of get conflated together.
Okay. The Geek Room. How about you? You're well. You want me to give your theological position, or does it matter?
Oh, I'm atheist. That it doesn't matter. I've always been pretty open about it. I thought it was really good. I came into it late, so I didn't get to see the whole thing. I saw about half of it, maybe about. I don't know how long it was running, but I think maybe about 30 to 40 minutes of it. But I thought it was really good. I enjoyed listening to it. I might go back and listen to the rest of it after this. But I do kind of believe that a lot of Christmas has a lot of pagan similarities and stuff like that. You know, of all the traditions and such. So,
do you think that would be a fair argument, though, to say if it does have pagan influence, that does it lead credence that maybe the Jesus narrative is more of a myth, in your opinion? Or think it doesn't matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think that's a leap to say that.
I the only reason I'm asking, I've seen that argumentation, right? I'm not saying that I accept it, but I've seen that argumentation.
Yeah. If they wanted to celebrate it at the time, I see no problem with it. I mean, so.
And by the way, I'd like to thank Mike O for the $5 super chat. He says, prospectors usually know best. Happy holidays, Steve. Happy holidays back to you. And by the way, I'm glad this year people are kind of moving past that. Hey, if somebody says Merry Christmas to you and you're an atheist, say Merry Christmas back, or Happy Holidays, or thank you. Don't be a dick, okay?
Yeah, even I
straight up, don't
Merry
be a dick.
Christmas
when I see atheists do that, I'm like, you just give atheists bad names when you. I'm not, religious, so don't wish me a Merry Christmas. It's a gesture. It's a nice thing that somebody.
Happy winter solstice.
Well, that'd be fine too. You could do that. Happy winter solstice, but that's not to like the 21st.
Appropriating my religion.
I say Merry Christmas, but I make sure I'm always crossing my fingers.
Sokka, what was your opinion on the debate?
Yeah, go Sokka.
Well, first off, my theological position is potato.
Potatoist.
I'm a potatoist. No, I think that it was interesting. I think that the main point that you guys touched on, or that Ocean kind of touched on a little bit, is that you see a lot of different cultural influences with Christmas, especially in Europe. Unique to every single country and every single region out there. There's certain things that they do that are unique to that. And so there is some type of cultural influence from that. And I think that it's not a huge leap and bound to say that the individual cultural influences that we have across the world that get expressed in Christmas, depending on where you are, could be traced back to previous cultures, which should almost be synonymous with previous religious beliefs, previous religious views that they had. So I don't think it's a far stretch to say that, especially, when you see and I'm not sure, I missed the first part of this. I'm not sure if it was brought up at all, but Christmas as first introduced in, North America was almost shunned by the Puritans because of its pagan influence. So that, even the early Christians in North America themselves didn't like, Christmas the way that it was celebrated.
Okay. Dress, did you watch the debate?
For my shame, I have to say I didn't. I was actually on a date, so
I do not have promoted this anymore, people.
Joss even got some research for me.
I put it on my Facebook. I put it on the G+, the Great Big Community.
No.
The sign as cars went by.
I was washing dishes.
I have to say it was a choice of going out with, you know, much too attractive woman for me, or watch Ocean.
And you chose the. Oh God.
All right. Well, what do you want to add on it since you didn't see the debate?
I quite like what's going on for. I mean, I think when you look across Europe, you do kind of see. I think that's a very good point, because you kind of have the Frankish Germanic kind of traditions of Christmas as practiced in Germany and, say, the Netherlands, and you know, then you also have some slight derivations when you move up to Scandinavia, and I find that, you know, because I mean, if you go to the Netherlands, St. Nicholas's Day is more important than Christmas Day. So December the 6th is when you exchange presents, not December the 25th. The other thing as well is, I mean, December the 25th was a compromise date that was actually forced upon the church. Not forced, but encouraged by Constantine in 336. So before that, what you really were seeing was most of the, you know, the January the 6th was generally when most people kind of celebrated it along with Epiphany. And then you have a difference between the Catholic Church and the Arian Church if you go back to the 400s. And then you get
we didn't go into the multiple dates of Christians celebrating it.
Yeah, and I don't think that Christians actually really put forth that was the actual day, right? I mean, I don't think they actually Jesus was born on this exact day. It was more of a just kind of celebrate.
IP made the reference to an argument that which some Christians do hold that.
Some Christians definitely, but I mean, St. Augustine, for example, really was like, this is the day, end of story. I mean, and same with St. John Chrysostom. The person I quoted, the early Christian author Julius Sextus, basically inferred that because he really did believe Jesus was conceived on March 25th. Jerome as well, Dionysius Exeges. I mean, they were all doing their early calculations, and this is what they came to believe was the official day. But yeah, there were for example, the Eastern Orthodox Church believed it was January 6th. So yeah, there was a little bit of disagreement, but they kind of agreed around the same time period.
How about in modernity? Though, how many people you think that are Christian actually think so? Now, I'm sure there are, but I can't imagine being a large swath of
not a lot. I mean, I don't think a lot of Christians care. It's just that's the day that's been established by the church. We just kind of remember the incarnation and get on with it.
I doubt Jesus would care one way or another. If you
did anyone bring up the fact that we changed from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian, and that would have screwed up the date anyway?
It was mentioned briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a flipperoozy, especially when it comes to people referencing dates in the 1st and 2nd century and so on, versus people talking about dates after the Gregorian calendar was adopted and some days moved around. So like whether or not it's on the 25th or whether or not like Saturnalia sits on the 25th starts to switch around when you're like, did it go through around it? Was it a thing? Yeah, it's a conversation that can come up, but it winds up kind of being confusing. I don't know. I haven't done the math.
But I would suspect, though, that Saturnalia would probably be most likely kicking off on a moon cycle.
Right, and Yule did as well. As far as the ending point of Yule, it started with around the solstice, which is detectable around the 25th, and then it would go through until the I think the closest new moon, which could be January or early February sometimes.
Ocean, did you bring in the first part of the debate that I missed? Did you bring up at all about the attitudes of Christians or especially the Puritans in
rejecting Christmas? No, we didn't discuss that. And the reason why I didn't bring that up is that I don't think it's necessarily relevant.
Right.
Just because people that when you have Puritans that say, it's pagan, that's an assertion by those people. I don't know how informed that assertion is, and I think that if we can skip that and go into what the evidence is. I think that IP agrees with me on that.
I think you guys agreed on everything. I don't know if the debate was over.
Sokka's trying to say something, guys.
Yeah,
it was like a love fest.
The only reason why I think that's an important fact to bring up was because when you take a look at the Puritans in, especially the New England area in the mid 17th century, so like this is like the 1650s, or I think it was around there, that in some parts of New England, Christmas was actually illegal. You couldn't celebrate, and that ban was on there for over 30 years. That it was actually a criminal offense to celebrate Christmas. And the reasoning behind this wasn't just because of the Puritan attitude, where it's just like, hey, listen, any holiday that encourages merriness and drinking and all this other stuff, which was a common thing for Christmas celebrations around that time. It was a time to go out and literally get shittered.
That's the one thing also though is that I don't think we brought it up because they were wrong on plenty of things. I mean, a lot of the Puritans first thought that Native Americans were lost tribes of Israel, or they were originally white people. I mean, just because they thought this about Christmas doesn't mean it was actually true. I mean, I'm more interested in what primary sources and what scholars had to say.
I agree with that. And I agree with that point. I think that it was kind of interesting that, within the specific bands that they put forward was the things like the Christmas tree were one of the things that they pointed to as a pagan symbol, which was would have been. I mean, this is we're talking 400 years ago that they recognized this, and I think that is a good representation of the time that even 400 years ago, which was a lot closer to the time that these pagan religions were would have been around, they recognized that as a pagan symbol.
They wouldn't have had a Christmas tree. You're probably thinking of a Yule log. They wouldn't have had a Christmas tree because Christmas trees is Prince Albert brought that over to the UK. So it's only if you had Puritans weren't Germanic stock, they were British. So they were probably referring to the Yule log, not the Christmas tree.
Entirely possible.
Well, let's kind of get the rest of the people in here real quick. Dylan, how are you, Dylan? I'm not sure I know you, but I think Cameron invited you. So did you watch the debate and what do you think? Or you can keep muted. Dylan? Oh, he's gonna be in the group chat. He says the whole thing, no mic at the moment. Okay. We'll just relate it. Did you think there was a winner? Did you think that
I don't think that either one of us was really setting out to win in this conversation.
Well, any debate there should be, but I agree with you. I don't think
it wasn't a debate. I mean, I thought it was great for the fact that it was a discussion.
Yeah,
it was just a nice kind of slightly guided discussion, which was much more, insightful than listening to the formal debate, format.
Yeah, if it was a debate, I think that I would have died on the hill of the mistletoe. That's something that I would have tried to defend these ideas. It wouldn't have worked too well. I think it's more interesting just to be honest about this and kind of have it more of an open.
The mistletoe, if I remember, Richard Carey was just talking about this the other day on Atheist Beyond the Trailer Park. And, he was bringing up the fact that it was something where if you kissed under the mistletoe and there was no berries, it was supposed to give you like a curse of being infertile. It was a very bad thing to do that.
Right, that's 18th century, though. It comes a little bit later. I think that Richard Carrier is interesting as a historian because I think that he... I disagree with him on a lot of things, but his comments on Saturnalia were really interesting. But it seemed like he was trying to put the mistletoe in Saturnalia, and I didn't understand. There's no evidence of that.
Well, his actual speciality is not biblical. What he's trained in, I think, is ancient science.
And he wrote a big book on that.
Yeah, and that's his real area. And I've sure I've read one of his books at some point.
Yeah, we're going to try to get him on next month. Try to have him have a conversation with Ocean and or General Han Solo. So anyways, Cameron, you hosted this. So I want to kind of get your General and Richard Carey.
I think Cameron might just be listening.
I know he does. General Han Solo definitely does not think it's big influence. But so Cameron, I want to congratulate you that you did moderate very well. It wasn't a debate though; it was a discussion, and I think that was actually beneficial. Because I think that because they were not talking past each other, it was informative. I preferred the discussions over the debates. Unfortunately, this is the debate, great debate community. I do have debates on this channel, but I'll tell you, I personally much rather be in a discussion than a debate. So I want to give you props on that. So what do you think of it overall?
So yeah, I'm here with my kids. I don't really have a whole lot of time to talk or whatever, but I thought it was great. I mean, the way that I set up my discussions is that I try to have it to where it's more of a conversational type of dialogue between two people on a given topic. And so I try to make it clear that this is not a debate. People often look at it like that. And I have friends that will text me and be like, well, who won? And I'm like, it's not really about that on my channel. I just want to like get as deep into the arguments as I can. Basically, just like a deeper version of Unbelievable, the radio program in the UK that I'm sure most of you guys are aware of. But
I am aware of it. Matter of fact, there's somebody that was just on that show that we're trying to get in our podcast next month, and I don't remember who it was. It's just mentioned to me that person was on Unbelievable. I have to think about it. Oh well.
Cameron, I think you got some background noise coming in, man. You might want to mute.
Or as you guys may know, we're starting a podcast next month. Yay! Everybody go. Yay! Nobody cares. Okay, well, it's gonna be awesome. So.
All right. I think Pseudo is here. Pseudo, did you get a chance to check out the debate?
Pseudo, what do you think?
Or the discussion?
Yeah,
I keep saying
I did. I watched. I'm not sure if I caught the very beginning of it. I think I was maybe 15, 20 minutes late from the very beginning.
Okay, well, then you have no right. Pseudo, you have no right to speak on this at all. Please vacate the room.
Yeah.
I've sorry guys, I got my audio back, so I don't. Steve, it sounded like you were saying something about the radio show. Not to cut anyone off.
Oh, nobody cares about my podcast that's coming up, but thank you, Cameron. I care, and my daughter cares, and the cat that's outside screaming. That's the only thing that cares. Now, what is
come on, Steve. You know all
about me. This is about Ocean and IP right now. Well, it's still about me, but it's still about them. Go ahead, Pseudo.
No, I did watch it. It was a structured conversation or dialogue, not a debate. Only because if it was a debate, I'm sorry, Ocean, you'd have to lose just because, you got no source material here.
Yeah, the primary sources issue. They're destroyed.
Yeah, I know
the problem.
But something with what you were talking about with Santa Claus's red suit. Father Christmas is green, and in Russia, Grandfather Frost or Father Frost, he wears blue.
Right, and the red that I was referencing is from the Finnish legend of Joulupuki, which is the where the red suit seems to be.
And in Soviet Russia, you give gifts to Santa.
No, Father Frost comes in the front door and sticks him under the tree.
That was an old reference. In Soviet, never mind.
Soviet Russia. I understood joke. It was very funny.
This is not a joke in my country.
In my country, Soviet Russia, joke tells you.
If joke is even willing to talk to you.
Yeah, well, the way things are going, we'll now be blocked the entire Soviet Union and Russia and all that now because how YouTube is, right? Can't say anything against anything.
Yeah, thanks for that neutrality.
Something I'll say on
now because of Putin.
Something I'll say on the source issue.
Yeah, okay.
The source issue, real quick, is that I think that the conversation point that we agreed on, Steve, I think I got some echo from you. Is that there's not very much on the primary source angle, if sometimes not at all, and that's definitely a problem. A lot of the sources that I was gathering together for this kind of thing were secondary sources, which I'm not sure exactly what their methodology is, and then we get into that. That's something that's really, really frustrating to get into because the process of understanding history from an archaeological perspective, primary source perspective, and then there's also the times where historians will just kind of like extrapolate from current culture and all that jazz. And it's annoying. It's a practice that pops up in history where sometimes a claim isn't necessarily sourced, but it's also based on a lot of history is based on circumstantial evidence. Because a lot of times that's all we've got, and I think that with the case of trying to make a case for pagan influence on Christmas, a lot of what you're dealing with is going to be that circumstantial evidence, because we're dealing with a situation in which Christianity both wiped out and was the only preserver of the history in the area, and that it's frustrating, but it's the reality of what we have to deal with.
Well, I agree. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. What I find disconcerting is when I see just information out there that is demonstrably unsourced. It just there's no backing for it. I mean, relating to like Baal and Nimrod and
when you get the stuff that's just like
there and
Nimrod drives me up a wall.
Pulled whole cloth. That's the
Oh
crap.
my God. I always say this. There's not one pagan source that mentioned Nimrod. I'm pretty sure I know where Alexander Hislop got this from. There was a forged document in the 4th century called Recognitions, which is attributed to Clement. Most scholars believe it's forged. At one point, he says in this document, whoever the author was, that Ninus was Nimrod. And if you look up what Diodorus says about Ninus, Ninus's wife was Semiramis. So I think that's where Alexander Hislop got all this from. He got it from a Christian forged document in the 4th century who tries to take Ninus and say he's Nimrod. This is like an unbelievably that's not even qualified to be an urban legend at this point.
So how does it get entrenched into our? I mean, you can't go a Christmas without seeing these comparisons.
2 words: confirmation bias.
Yes.
It is an extremely frustrating kind of thing that pops up with you get. So somebody found an old scholar. I think you know who. You said the name and I recognized it. It's this guy that's horribly researched that was the main source for Zeitgeist, and Zeitgeist is very, very popular among conspiratorial people because they've got projects on 9/11, they've got projects on religion, they've got projects on numerous other things that are extremely conspiratorial aspects. So when people start using this thing as a source, it's poorly researched, but it confirms what they want to bring to the table when it comes to criticizing Christianity, which I'll highlight. Just because there's similarities between Christianity and paganism doesn't mean that Christianity is wrong. It doesn't mean that paganism is right. It doesn't mean any of it. It's like the extrapolations that they want to make from that, of there being similarities between these religions in antiquity, was seen as evidence for Christianity. So when you're pulling out similarities that are ahistorical, that you can go out and demonstrably prove no, that's not a thing, and then try and use it in the way that the opposite way that it was used historically, it's extremely frustrating, and it grinds my gears, so to speak.
Yeah, the worst part is it comes up over and over again.
Sorry, Ocean, when you said there was 2 words, I was actually kind of waiting for you to say YouTube.
That too, but YouTube is
or
one word,
Facebook.
I think.
Or YouTube, Facebook. There you go. There's 2 words,
and that's fine. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with everything you're saying there. But going to one of the points that Spackle brought up earlier about how Christianity is an evangelizing religion, and so it does try to adopt and incorporate the traditions of cultures within it, or that it's evangelized into its own narrative, to almost like ease the transition. And when you take a look at something like Christmas, I know there are sources on this, but when the Roman holiday that was celebrated, for the winter solstice there, was turned into was turned into a Christian holiday by Constantine. Like, there's almost an acknowledgement of this within Christian historians that the origin of that holiday is based off of the fact that Constantine did, embrace Christianity as a religion of the Roman Empire, and changed the festivals and the nature of the holidays from a Roman context into like the Christian context.
But you agree? You think that was because they wanted to assimilate them in order to kind of reduce the transition, because they were an evangelizing thing. They wanted to bring.
But I mean, and that's the point, is that they would, from a political maneuver, this is something that they would do, and it's something that makes sense. And it's something that I'm pretty sure that that there's some source material on this. I think because when I read up on this, I think I got this from a Christian site that kind of explained this. That even though, it's not saying that the entire narrative of Jesus' birth has therefore been made up or anything like that, but it was shoehorned into an existing pagan holiday. Where it's just like, hey, you guys are already celebrating. Let's give you guys a really good reason to celebrate instead.
I mean, I regarding that, I would refer back to the paper I said in the debate, Stephen Hidgman's Soul Invictus, the Winter Solstice and the Origins of Christmas. There have been some scholars that have asserted that, and he actually responds to a lot of them on that. There's really not a lot of evidence that was the Christian reason for putting it on December 25th. I mean,
I don't think there can be any argument that Sola Invictus was on the 25th. It makes perfect sense for it to be on the 25th, considering the name of the festival and the god.
Right, because that's when you first see the evidence that the days are getting longer is the 25th.
Yeah,
Right,
It's noticeable at that point.
And from what I understand, like there was there was a holiday that you can trace back to the 2nd century, where people did celebrate the baptism of Christ, which would have been in like the first week of January, around that time there. So the transition between the moving that holiday, kind of changing what they're celebrating, pushing it back and putting it in line with like the Roman holiday would make sense, but it still would be incorporating a pagan holiday into the Christian tradition.
Another thing, I mean, I think it's interesting that there's a little bit of flipping around on the days with the early Christians and when they celebrated things associated with Christ in the winter. But the fact that there's a Christian celebration in the winter doesn't necessarily then therefore mean that that the pagan influence is there on the date. The Sola Invictus thing is one that I find myself most convinced by, as far as the pagan influence on the date. But then there's argument about when that was and why it was moved there, because it was moved there from the 11th December with the earlier celebrations of the unconquered sun.
And to quote Stephen Hidgmans, I mean, he says the traditional feast days of Sol, as recorded in the early imperial fasti, were August 8th, August 9th, August 28th, and December 11th. Of these, only August 28th is still mentioned in the calendar, the Philo-Calian calendar of 354 AD, along with October 19th and 22nd. So, I mean, there was really not a lot of evidence prior to the Philo-Calian calendar of 354 AD that Sola Invictus was on December 25th. If it was there prior, I mean, it's possible, but there's no reason to assert that Christians picked December 25th to sort of overtake a pagan holiday.
And that's also a period of, the period prior to that is a period of reasonably shitty emperors as well. Because after Constantine goes, it kind of drops downhill rather rapidly, if I remember rightly. And he died 337.
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
Well, again, I don't know what the records are like for calendar dates prior to Philo's calendar, the 354.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like what we go on for a lot of early dating.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was, to call a lot of mixing. What we do use a lot of is the fasti inscriptions, because those are actual inscriptions in Rome. They go back to the days of the Republic. They mention a lot of calendar dates for us to use, and they're online. You can go look at them for free anytime you want, and they're interesting. They even mention they're very particular. They'll mention the dates some certain constables were elected. Like they're actually trying to get as much as you can out of it. So they would have, if Sola Invictus was on December 25th, I highly doubt they would have missed it. However, it is of course fragmented, so maybe it's in something that we lost. Who knows? But as of now, we don't have any evidence of it.
By the way, real quick, I dropped the link for Dylan and Cameron to join the GCA. I think they're the only two in here that are not, so they're more than welcome to. IP actually is a member of GDC, although he doesn't post in it very often.
I'm sorry, I'm so busy. I just don't have the time.
I know, but you actually have been a member of the GDC for quite some time.
Yeah, because you were doing debates with Ken Hovind, and I was like, I'm going to join because I want to debate Hovind next. But then, I got busy and I can't do it. So,
you didn't miss out. I don't think that it would have. I mean, obviously, you probably would have done exceptionally well because I know you're a theistic evolutionist.
People were just taking turns stomping him. Like,
of course,
Well, the reason why I'd like to debate him is because I saw one of his debates one time when I just became a Christian, and I fell for a lot of his stuff he said. And then I have a cousin who's an atheist, and he just wiped the floor with me, and it really made me question my beliefs for a while. But I mean, like, I was so mad because I was like, he lied. Like, he literally lies in a lot of his lectures. And I was like, I can't believe it. Like, so I was so mad about that for a while.
So you were a creationist.
Yeah, Kent Hovind is definitely creative. Like, that's.
Oh, he's a master of sophistry. I mean, he knows how to play the game.
You shared something on Facebook a while back on this, like where you had a conversation you were interviewed with some guy. What was his name?
Who are you talking about, Frank?
Me.
I'll look it up.
What was I interviewing him about?
I don't remember this. I gotta look it up.
Oh, okay.
So you don't remember who it was with, or was it about? Must have been really left.
Dogma debates is what you're talking about. You're talking about his own with David Smalley, and I was on Dogma debates.
That's it, David Smalley. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about him.
Oh, you were on Dogma debate?
Yeah.
It upset me listening to that. It was like I think I ended up like writing a huge thing. I don't know if I sent it or not,
Oh, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to read a lot of the comments about that, but yeah.
I was like,
So what did it make you think?
That
When
done? I want to look it up.
What's that, Steve?
I was well. Go ahead and get the link for Holy Spackle. I think she's asking for that, which I would like to check out too. But how did it make you feel when you had been suckered by Hovind and going, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? These young earth creationist arguments, yeah, they suck. They're just not good.
It just made me angry. I mean, like, I was basically just kind of like mainly just upset and mad because I was really trying to search for things at this time. I really wanted to like dive in and know where the evidence was leading. And so, you know, shortly after when I, you know, got suckered into that, I felt so mad and embarrassed. And then I started I said, I'm going to primary sources. I just started reading a lot of like scientific papers. I started reading early church fathers. That was in some respects, that sort of kicked me off and me in a way a lot of stop just reading secondary sources, start reading primary sources, start reading the peer-reviewed papers directly. So in a way, it kind of strengthened my ability to want to research more and really go after the fact and stop.
So you went the Wayne Elmer route and the like the General Han Solo method of looking at the Bible. I mean, you were able to reconcile your beliefs as far as divine things like God existing and existential nature being the creator of the universe and all that stuff without having to lose that by because some people when they come out of young earth creationism, they leave it all religion altogether. They're done. They're like, oh yeah, there's just no gods at that point.
Right, and that's one of the things I did. I read Saint Augustine, I read Justin Martyr, and a lot of them took Genesis allegorically, and I was like shocked. I was like, why are they doing this? So that was kind of like, okay, that's interesting. So I started looking more into that and the actual exegesis of Genesis 1, how scholars interpret it as Hebrew three-line poetry, as a functional understanding. I actually talked about this a little bit in my debate with David Smalley. Towards the last hour, I've gotten to talk about Genesis and how it's actually interpreted by a lot of scholars.
I bet you'd probably agree with General Han Solo on a lot. Then he takes a concordance approach.
Yes, yeah, I've listened to some of his debates too. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So my question is, with that, like if you take Genesis the way that like I do and Han does and stuff like that, I think we do have a problem with like when does the human soul begin?
Oh, good question. I actually just did a video on this in December. It's called "What Does It Mean to Be the Image of God?" And I talk about this because I talk about how the word soul comes up in the Bible. It's used for both humans and animals. Same with the word for spirit. Same with the word for spirit for life. And I talk about what it actually means to be the Imago Dei, the image of God. I talked about it a little bit with my debate with David as well. But it's not what you think it is. We tend to assume, because we're constantly reading the account in Genesis 1 with this Western view, with our English dictionary and our English terms. And, you know, a lot of scholars like J. Richard Middleton, John Walton, Joshua Moritz have looked at this and go, we're reading this with a Western view. The ancient Near Eastern people wouldn't have read it the same way we have. And so I did a video specifically on that where I talk about what it meant to be called the Imago Dei. And it doesn't necessarily refer to soul creation in that sense.
I had to go check on it to just what the Roman holiday was, and it was Saturnalia that showed up on the calendars between the 17th and the 23rd of December.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that was the event that was already in place.
Oh yeah, I've never denied that in my videos. Yeah, I've known that's been around for a while, but I don't think that had any influence on the dating of Christmas. Is my point.
Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I wanted to throw a bit of an idea at you. Because something I've been
you have an idea?
I have
hey,
no
what's
idea.
the calendar date? Mark this down, guys. Mark it down. Yeah, that's an idea. Awesome. Okay.
So we've obviously been having lots of debates, and there's lots of controversy and stuff. And I thought we could make something fun out of a little bit of what's been going on. And just as a point of argument, I would actually like to see a debate where people argue for the other side.
Yeah, I know. I thought about that. Yeah,
no, and I think we do that for charity.
Yeah, actually, when I took public speaking in college, that's one of the things we actually had to do. You actually had to take something and actually argue the other side. We've thought about doing
a competitive debate for some time, and it was that we had to do that often.
Steve, would I not win that? Would I not master?
Yeah,
Frank would
be very good at it.
Frank should argue theology and Christianity, and I should argue atheism. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, he should
I
argue
did
by
IP. One of the
Do we
reasons
have-
everyone says I'm a Catholic is because I'm so dang good at defending them. It's
Yeah.
Do I
Frank is
have
not Catholic.
to like when I adopt the other person's position? Can I adopt their debating tactic as well?
God damn it.
No song.
That's the problem. You know, you can have two ways of doing it, right? Like, for example, you could do the whole let's debate using their debate tactics because you know how some of these people, you know their answers before you even ask half the time because you just know how dishonest some of these people are. But is that really something you want to listen to? I would rather have somebody really honestly try to debate the opposite position. And let me tell you, it's not easy.
I think one of the things I think that could be fun with this is we could actually turn this into something positive, turn it into a charity event. And the challenge is what it demonstrates the other person's understanding of their opponent's argument.
So IP has to now debate pilot wave theories. Okay.
But I'm so mad about that right now.
Oh man, I just
No, I'm fine.
If I had that many, I would convert so many people though. That would be the problem.
Yeah, we'll consider that. I got a lot of stuff going in this next year. We're gonna be going big time, I hope, and we're gonna get some good debates going. We're gonna get back into these debates, and I'm already trying to do not what do they call it when you have like teams going to teams and they the next person who wins go to the next team. What do they call that?
Competition?
No, a tournament. Yeah, kind of like a tournament thing. But it's gonna be like a little bit more specific, and I'm gonna have to determine how do you really determine who won a debate, right? Because let's be realistic, debates here are basically purely by public opinion, by who thinks.
You know what I would do a lot. I would do a lot more debates. Actually, no, that's not true. I don't want to do any debates. I hate debates. I hate the format. I would do a lot
I'm not
more
a fan either, but every so often I'll do more.
Like I would do a lot more guided discussions. Things that I like that I don't have to sit there and actually research for, a couple weeks on beforehand and like do the PowerPoint like we've seen in some of the debates here.
I will call them discussions, one-on-one discussions, or even two.
So if anyone wants to have a guided discussion with me, I will do
I want
that.
to make some points
I got
if
one.
I can real quick.
Yeah, please.
So the first point is that if you guys are interested in that kind of like switching the sides debate kind of thing, there was a discussion between Randall Rouser and philosopher Michael Ruse on Unbelievable, where they switch sides, and Michael Ruse is he's an atheist. And anyways, that was a really great discussion. I thought that Randall actually acted like an atheist or gave atheistic arguments. I think he was a better atheist than Michael was a Christian.
I could argue for atheism better than most atheists I know, probably.
But that's point one, and then point two on the subject of like a guided discussion. I actually hosted a discussion between Josh Rasmussen and this guy named Lance Hannestad, and he basically Josh, he's a philosopher. He actually walked Lance is an atheist. He walked Lance through the argument from contingency, and it was basically like that format. It was like he basically broke it down. We walked through the entire argument, and then Lance was basically just able to sit there and be like, okay, well, this is what I think about that. And that was the format. So if you guys want to check that out.
Like R.C. Sproul style contingency?
Yeah. I wouldn't mind an actual debate on the argument from contingency. I take the Alex Malpass approach. I think Alex Malpass did a brilliant breakdown of the argument from contingency. But what? Holly Speckle?
I said rest in peace, R.C. Sproul. He just passed away.
Yeah, I know.
That's unfortunate.
I figured you were going to be at least to have a week of mourning.
I have an affection for him, and maybe it's because he's a little bit more of a Thomist than a Calvinist. I don't know.
Yeah, I did find out about that. That is a shame, obviously.
Sorry, what happened?
R.C. Sproul
died.
Oh man.
Great Jadlo's hero died.
But
is that why Trey Jadlo's doing his like year of like mourning now? Is that why he hasn't been around?
Well, yeah.
He's gonna shave all his body hair for a mourning period.
I hope he's not pouring ashes over his head. That would not be fitting.
Well, this took a dark turn.
Yeah. So I have a question, IP. If you could.
Yeah, go ahead. I should probably get going in about a couple minutes though, but yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
If you care to answer, what's your view on Sola Scriptura? Like,
I don't have 2 hours.
Oh my God, that's interesting.
I mean, it's a complicated issue. It's hard to really just.
Oh yeah, it is. Well, how about do you take formal sufficiency, or would you only take immaterial sufficiency?
That is a good. I mean, again, this is a good question. I'm not entirely sure where I sit on that right now. I mean,
become Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, I don't necessarily, that you can only learn from Scripture as a lot of like really hardcore product. Like you can only get that from Scripture. I think there's a lot of, I don't think that was a view of the early church. I don't think that was a view of Scripture itself, that these are the only inspired works necessarily. But it's a complicated issue. I mean, I'm
okay. Well, you don't have I don't. Why you don't want to? I'm always curious, but it's actually probably best for your reputation not to answer the question.
Yeah, it's hard for me to really say right now. I really need to probably get more into that at this point. I haven't had a lot of time though, too.
I know most of your videos are at.
Do you have a video currently, IP, about the Euthyphro dilemma, or do you?
I do have one. It's called The Moral Argument, and we talk about the Euthyphro dilemma at the end of it. But I'll be going into more detail probably in April in a separate video, because I do want to dive more into that, because I think it can be better well defined.
Cool. I mean, that's a topic that interests me about Christians and how they kind of originate morality, because pagans have like a completely different view on it, where we have more of a communal origin for morality than a divine one. So it's an interesting topic for me.
And this is where we root our morality. So like in God's nature, this one.
I don't say that. I don't like saying that, because I think it gives you the wrong impression.
It suggests divine command.
It does. I would say I kind of go along with what Plato says. God is the good.
Yeah. So synthetic. Yeah.
So, if you believe that there is objective moral realism, you would essentially confer a necessary rational source for that. That's what I talk about in my video, The Moral Argument.
But doesn't it just push the Euthyphro dilemma back a step?
No, it's a synthetic. Well, we actually talked about this topic.
So he says that it goes with divine command theory, so it actually chooses one of the horns.
Oh, if it chooses one of the horns, then I'm okay with it.
No, I don't choose. I don't necessarily think I do, but it's.
Yeah, me and Frank had like a good 3-hour discussion on this before.
Yeah, it's a synthetic identity. It's you learn that it's like it's like the Masked Man, right? You learn Superman, and Lois Lane learns that Superman and Clark Kent are one and the same, and before then they're two distinct things in her mind.
Well, that's correct. I remember that's the difference between intentionality and extensionality.
Oh, I guess it doesn't. That's confusing then, as far as like origin point. I'll have to watch your video when you do. I'm going to go back.
Let's let IP go. I know he's nice to drop in a little while. I know he's a busy guy. Hey, IP, when we get a chance to later on, like I said, maybe next year somewhere, when we do get some of these debates, maybe we find something you might pique your interest, and then we can get this channel going and have you come in and kind of have a discussion on something of interest.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I love doing these kind of things. I mean, the best way to do is just directly contact me and ask me. I'll try to keep as much up as I can, but I mean, especially this season, I'm working a full-time job.
Very well, you guys all. I mean, I would much rather have discussion on Bohemian mechanics and stuff like that. But whatever. We just had one with King Crocoduck. Did you miss that?
I think I probably did. Yeah. Yeah, but
King Crocoduck. We tried to talk about it, but it's we weren't prepared for that. So, but we are having a couple discussions with a couple physicists coming up on helium diffusion rates.
Oh, interesting.
But anyways, if you haven't subscribed to IP, go check out his channel. He has a substantially big audience. I will put the link in the video description at some point to his channel. And Cameron's as well, because I did put the link to the actual debate already in the video description. So go to subscribe to Cameron as well. I don't know if Cameron, but like I said, I think he did a very good job in facilitating that discussion. So I expect to see more like that.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yeah, but again, Steve, I love a lot of the debates you've had. I've watched as much as I can. I appreciate a lot of this stuff you put out there.
Thank you, IP. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we actually had a discussion with Michael on the resurrection. I think it was
a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so it was a really good discussion with Corey Markham. He's working on the Hinge podcast right now, which is a podcast that just launched. That it's a discussion between basically a pastor and an atheist. And they talk about who is the real Jesus, basically. But good little podcast.
Yep. it's Bohmian mechanics. I said Bohemian.
I know.
Bohemian. I know.
Bohemian mechanics.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Yes.
Mechanics with a burlesque outfit on.
Rhapsody.
It's the Russian mechanics.
I told you I'm not feeling well today. I told you at the very beginning of this. You can hear it in my voice.
It's okay. If you write Bohemian mechanics in Facebook, it'll correct you on my Apple. It'll say Bohemian mechanics. That's what you meant.
Oh, that's funny.
In Russia, mechanics studies you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I need to get going.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, now IP's got to tell us how you really feel about him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Anyways, no,
I cannot stand that. Oh, wait, sorry.
No, Ocean hasn't left yet. Ocean hasn't yet. You can't talk about Ocean yet.
Oh,
I feel like
sorry.
people...
I was talking about Ocean. You still here?
Clearly.
I was going to say earlier, just like when we argue somebody else's position, I would be like, yeah, I could probably argue Ocean's position. I just give me shit face. I'll bang my head into the wall a couple times and
Odin.
Yeah. Odin.
I really want to. You know what's funny, Sucker? I really want to have a discussion by some of these people that I just really want to bang my head against the wall. Like, for example, this one guy that just came up on the Great Debate Community page, and I've known him for a while, but he's doing the same thing Redhead Monster is doing with you on the whole not understanding knowledge entails belief thing. Don't you ever want to see one of those people actually come into a hangout and defend their freaking position?
I mean, it would be great. I mean, because they always accuse me of well, you're just making a semantic argument. It's like no, that's actually exactly what you're doing.
Exactly. Exactly. They can stick with a definition, and then they're like, "Oh, you're giving a semantic argument." I'm like, "No, actually, it's the opposite of what I'm doing here." And then they say, "Oh, you don't understand this." I'm like, "Well, okay, then explain to me why I don't." Because I think most people have reached the conclusion that certain topics I do know a little bit about, and this. How many people have we gone through in that particular argument, Saka, about knowledge and justified true belief, theories of knowledge?
Yeah,
we've done it a few times, right?
Quite a few. I mean, I think that the most telling one with these discussions is that a lot of times people will say things like off the cuff, and I do this too. I'll come out and I'll say something like, like my initial kind of feeling about something, like, if someone presents an argument and it's just like, I kind of get that spidey sense where like, this isn't really making sense. This is what my initial type thing is. And then, I might have kind of like a misunderstanding of the argument, or, maybe I'm misrepresenting them, and I'll go and I'll try to correct that. I'll try to actually,
sure, we all do that.
Yeah. And I revised my position on it. Like my initial, like, for example, like my initial problem with Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism, my initial response to that was kind of like a gut reaction. But, as I went through and kind of broke it down, I came up with a much more, kind of like sophisticated response to it. And
not according to most.
Well, yeah, but he's an idiot, so who cares? But the other thing was with this guy, when we're talking about like knowledge and belief, where it was just like I wrote out like one post kind of explaining, okay, listen, yes, we use knowledge in a couple different ways here, in as a skill, as a form of familiarity. Here's how belief intertwines with that type, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about knowledge as in propositional knowledge. How do we know this proposition is true? How do we know essentially how can we separate a true belief from a false belief? And within that, it entails that type of knowledge is a subset of belief, and the majority of philosophers will agree with this. There's a very small minority, and I've looked at those positions, and I don't find them good arguments, and I have rebuttals for those ones. But so I wrote out the first kind of long reply to this guy, basically saying, hey, listen, this is what I mean, this is what we're talking about, and his reply is basically, well, that's wrong. And I'm like, well, how? Okay, well, great. Well,
that's what he told me too.
Yeah, how is that wrong? Like, okay, let's just start off really simple. If you don't believe that knowledge is a subset of belief, if you think that you can put forward a theory of knowledge that doesn't entail belief, let's just start off with a very simple question. What do you mean by knowledge? And then the very next reply that he puts out there is, well, a theory of knowledge is an explanation of data, information, or idea believed to be true.
I saw that. Yeah, that was cool.
So, okay, so you just acknowledge it. I mean, that's great. So you've just acknowledged in your reply that in that sense, that knowledge is a subset of belief. Like that's what I know that you just, Googled it and you copied that response, but that's what it's saying. And then silence.
Yeah, you make it very clear that we're talking about propositional knowledge. People actually can call it descriptive or declarative or whatever, but you make it very clear. And then they'll start talking about other things like procedural knowledge, or my favorite one. I love this one when Redhead Monster said, "Well, a book has knowledge, but a book doesn't believe things." I was like, that's either the most creative or the most asinine stupid retort I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did he not understand that had nothing to do with what we're talking about when it comes to propositional knowledge?
No, they did, but I mean that's fine. But I mean, yeah, like that's
it was no,
yeah,
it was a good. We've got to admit that was a good retort, even though it was just what the hell is he what book knowledge? Huh? He's using it in such a weird way, right? Because I don't think a book has knowledge. A book has information.
Well, I mean,
you can gain knowledge from it.
Yeah, there's like a colloquial use of it, but even that, like any knowledge you put inside of a book is still propositional. Like you have to take it as a proposition. If somebody, if there's some type of if somebody writes, something inside of a book that is a fact, something that they believe to be true, you can still. It is still a form of propositional knowledge that they're putting down into that book, and then you still have to believe it to be true before you can know it to be true. Like or that you have to believe it to be true and know it to be true at the same time. Like it doesn't get you out of this.
Like
this
the whole
problem.
temporal. You're trying to make it into a temporal thing, and I thought that was just adding more confusion.
Yeah, and that was the other thing.
You know it at the same time, but you have to believe it first and then know it. It's more than
yeah, and that was the other problem too. Is when you say that like knowledge is a subset of belief, where they assume things like that. This means that before you can know something, you have to first believe it and then you know it, which isn't the case. It's it's when we talk about knowledge in this way, we're talking about knowledge as a kind of like a specific type of belief. Okay, that it's one and the same. When you believe something to be true, or whether you know something to be true, you hold the same type of mental state. The only difference is the justification that you have in supporting one as true.
Agreed. By the way, Floyd is in the live chat. I did invite Floyd to the hangout, but I guess he's not going to come in. But I would have found that to be interesting. Floyd against Ocean and IP, because I think Ocean and IP kind of agreed on most things. I still don't know what the hell they disagreed on.
There was the disagreements that we had were mainly about areas that I think that there is pagan influence. I think that the date with Sola Invictus is is a bit of a smoking gun, but the evidence is circumstantial. With Santa, I think that there's another smoking gun with the celebrations around Santa, specifically with the sleigh, the goat/reindeer kind of thing, the coat being a reference to Chulapuki, the similarities in the celebration, the gift giving, the evergreens decoration, all of these things that he just IP just flat out just denies that there's any influence.
Yeah, I did hear all that. Can't you just ask like Odin and see what Odin says? He's the wisest of the gods, isn't he?
Odin has told me that
that's what he gave his eye for.
IP is wrong on everything.
Okay,
but I can't bring that into a debate. Sourcing Odin just isn't really the best approach in these debates. But
it'd be so cool that we could. That would be awesome.
Right, it'd be great, right? But
yeah,
Odin half.
If we get into a debate in which there's a Christian that says God says, I usually do.
This would be the most watched video of all time.
As I did with Darwin's deity. I started citing Odin because he was doing the.
Your God is more wiser than Odin.
Right. My God is the wisest of gods.
Yeah.
So he's smarter than yours. That's. Oh, you're going to claim that that contradicts with the truth that Odin is the wisest of gods. But anywho, that was the main point of disagreement, was anywhere that I thought that there was pagan influence, and there were some areas that I agreed with him that there weren't. And like with the Christmas tree,
I agree. The Christmas
subtly
tree
with the.
I get that. Yeah,
right.
I don't think that was a pagan influence.
The Christmas tree, the nativity scene. The nativity scene was something I kind of threw in as a joke that I wanted to talk about it, because I think that it's got a lot of similarities to what pagans do, but it's not a direct influence. The Yule log is something that seems to be just European folklore, and then there's the mistletoe is something that has like this. It's a disconnect. Like it's associated with fertility, with the kissing thing, but that's about the only thing that you could actually say is related to paganism. Like the reason why the kissing thing is there is probably has to do with the fertility relationship, and people thinking about that fertility relationship and then doing the kissing thing and associating it with another fertility aspect. Beyond that, it's not a tradition that was done by pagans, the whole kissing under the mistletoe thing.
I agree. I like the way IP though kind of put it in a nutshell. Look at, even if it does have pagan thing, it doesn't really make that much difference. He's, he
but as far as the religion is concerned, no, and I agree with him on that.
I do, and I do as well. I like the fact he's like, look, if you put up a Christmas tree, you don't put up a Christmas tree, that doesn't make you any more or less a Christian. I have to agree with him on that.
Did IP deny any influence whatsoever? And more specifically, what
to the end, he denies any influence.
And what does he do?
Yeah.
Is there an agreement?
Well, his position.
No, I disagree.
His position seemed to be something like, "There's not really any evidence for it, so we can't really say one way or the other."
As far as saying
there's not a whole lot of primary source evidence.
And I agree with the fact that like saying definitively. However, I also counter with the fact that in a study of history, saying definitively is not necessarily the standard that can be reached in all cases. And if the standard is going to be held to say definitively about these things, then Christianity starts to have a problem when we start talking about Jesus, for example.
All of history studies have a problem that way.
And so holding that definitive, God damn it, Steve, you're echoing.
Am I?
Yeah. But that holding that definitive standard gets to be a roadblock in the conversation, just because with history, there's often not that standard cannot be reached with several subjects throughout history. So a lot of the study of history that we actually examine has to do with circumstantial evidence or has to do with archaeological or anthropological studies. And that's something that I'm not sure if I was able to make that super clear, but there was something I attempted to make clear, but there was definitely some crosstalk around how you would be able to actually demonstrate this or even provide evidence of it.
I did want to say that I've got to go, but I really enjoyed this after show, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we just call it an after show. We don't. It just gives an excuse to get together and drink.
Well, the next discussion that I have planned, I mentioned it on my channel, is between Josh Rasmussen and Graham Oppie, and that's on the origins of reality. And that's on January 18th at 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you guys are interested in discussing that, I might pop back over.
I would be very interested in listening to that. Do you know their epistemic positions offhand?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, are they a foundationalist? Do they think the Big Bang cosmology? Do they? I mean, what are they? When you talk about the origin, they're talking about cosmogony. So, do you think that they are promoting it from a scientist viewpoint or from a philosophical viewpoint? Well,
they're both philosophers, and I'll say this: that Josh Rasmussen, he's like one of the most premier philosophers on the contingency argument, and so that's sort of where he'll be coming from. He actually just wrote a book with Alexander Pruss on. I think necessary beings, talking about something like that. And so I think that probably what Josh will argue is that there is some sort of necessary being, and that this necessary being is God.
Okay, so you're talking more along the lines of a cosmological argument, not the origin itself of the universe.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. So Graham wanted to make sure that it was going to be a discussion more generally about the origins of reality. He didn't want to discuss like a specific argument or like any specific formulation. He just wanted to have like an open discussion on the topic. So okay. I'm just guessing at like what Josh is going to say. So that's what I would say. Like that's what Josh would say. And then Graham, he's really well known for basically arguing the opposite, that these arguments don't work, contingency arguments don't work, Kalam doesn't work. He's engaged with Craig in the academic literature on it. So
I would really like to look at that. Yeah. Yeah, that. Let me know when you. I mean, obviously you letting me know now, but remind me. But give me the link January, at least like an hour.
January.
Well, wait till January. Give me a link when you give me the link, and I'll promote it everywhere.
Cool. Yeah, it's already set up on my channel. You should be able to see it. If you.
You already have the link already going?
Well, I've got the event set up, so like you can see that it's already scheduled.
Oh, awesome. You do it way in advance. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to promote that for you in the GDC. You actually joined now, so your channels get promoted.
Cool. But yeah,
Which you
like I
wouldn't
said,
anyways.
it was a
didn't, but-
pleasure, and
okay.
maybe we'll talk soon and do something else together. I don't know.
That'd be fun. Sounds good. Awesome.
Cool. See you guys later.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Peace.
He's a good guy, I think.
Very nice. Very pleasant. Yeah. No, I'm glad we're adding a lot of new people to the GDC. I want to expand it, but I want to expand it with decent people. Obviously, because we open it up so much, we had a lot of trollish type people come in, but they got eliminated pretty quickly, I think. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sokka's on that. Keep us the kibosh on it, and you're out. Well, look how long MK lasted again. I mean, like,
right.
I mean, for God's sake, he just does not know how to have an actual discussion.
I missed when you guys booted him. Did you boot him again?
Yeah, he got booted again. Yeah, he's just incapable of having an actual dialogue. Why bother? As a matter of fact, Midnight's the nicest kid in the world. He went in there. It was MK and Tommy Hall and somebody else I can't remember. Yeah, he was lasted about 30 seconds. He's like, oh, screw this. Now Floyd shows up. Hey, Floyd, scaredy cat. Scaredy cat. Didn't want to come in when IP was here. I was kidding.
Did IP bring up that Martin Luther invented the Christmas tree?
Yeah, he talked about
that. he Christians just rewrite history, and he just swallows it up. He's just regurgitating, you know.
I did bring up in the debate that he's using a little bit of Christian revisionism, and it's frustrating. But it's also, he does bring up the point that primary sources on this stuff are difficult to find, or even impossible to find, and I think that's largely in part of Christian well, again, I think that's largely in part to Christian revisionism, that the sources that would contradict these things were often destroyed.
Yeah, because when they didn't want any record of it.
And I'll note also in the debate, he didn't object to that.
I mean,
so he knows that that's taking place. Like,
there's tons of paganism in Western culture. I mean, just look at the days of the week. You have Sunday, you have Moon Day, you have Tyre's Day, you have Woman Day, you have Thor's Day, you have Frey's Day, you have Saturn's Day. I mean,
that's the thing.
I mean, the gavel in a courtroom. All these things are pagan imagery, and Christians just want to revise history. Oh no, it all comes from Christian origins. Martin Luther just invented the Christmas tree. Now
I never heard that one before until today. So
I didn't hear that until today either. I was surprised.
No one of the German thing, and I understand like the Christmas ornaments are supposed to represent Apple, like from Adam and Eve. So I have heard that narrative before, and it's probably has some truth to it. There was probably an Adam and Eve festival of some kind, and they did have a pine tree. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't think the tree itself was
even Jewish festivals and traditions were just reinvented for their culture, like the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. There were Phoenician traditions, and the Jews just gave it new meaning.
Well, what about Easter?
Steve, don't open a can of worms.
That's another thing, all right?
You're going down a whole
we were
new
trying to
rabbit
specifically
hole,
talk about. We were trying to specifically talk about Christmas as much.
I know that's fair.
Yeah, when you get into some of the other holidays, there's some that are like more evidence than not. Halloween, for example, is one that's so freaking obvious. I'm surprised that some people deny it.
What about December 25th? You talked about December 25th.
Yeah, we did. We talked about Sol Invictus. We talked about Saturnalia. He denies it. It's one of those.
The influence from Saturnalia. I really do.
I don't know.
I'm
convinced by the Sol Invictus part.
Yeah, well, all these holidays are around the changes.
One moment. I just want to address Ocean here on the whole Christmas ham thing.
Yeah.
If you live on a farm, come winter, you put food away. You smoke your hams and make your sausage and put it away. By midwinter, you've now realized you've made it that far. You know how much food you have to make it till spring.
Right.
So what do?
You make your fucking ham.
Yes, you make your fucking ham, you have a party, and you know how much food you can eat for every day for the next until the springtime comes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So it doesn't matter where you
celebrations.
go in the world, that kind of practice happens.
Right. The question is whether or not the practice of it is today is related to the religious practice of it, which, regardless of the reason for their pagan practice,
Yeah.
is the practice that we have related to that pagan practice.
Mhm.
And I think that with the case of Christmas ham, the Yule celebration of eating pigs specifically is heavily related. But there's other traditions about it, but it's a Northern European tradition that popped up, and it's related to Icelandic texts that point out, yeah, this is something that they did around the time of Yule.
Can I ask another question, though? Did they keep a lot of cattle other than pigs?
The Vikings were mainly focused on goats for as a focus, but because they would use goat's
you
milk.
probably wouldn't slaughter the goat so much because you would keep it for its the milk.
Yeah.
So you would probably be the first to doing that.
But they were like cattle, like you eat the males, you don't eat the females, and then sometimes you slaughter a female.
Oysters are a tradition in, I think, North America to eat at Christmas time, simply because, in the old days, oysters would go bad. So the only time you could eat oysters, you could deliver oysters is in the wintertime when it was cold. So that was the time that you could eat them. Unless you lived on in a coastal area, there's no way you could ship oysters out. They would go bad. But in the wintertime you could do that. So it became a tradition at Christmas to eat oysters.
Had not heard that one before. That makes sense, though.
Mm-hmm.
I like oysters.
It would also be a food that you would see with being more expensive and showing wealth.
Because it was more pricey.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have them delivered, right?
You'd have to have it delivered and shipped in, so therefore it shows that you have money that you can afford to buy this.
Yeah. There's a book. I'm not sure if I still have it or not, or it might be information on the internet of the origins of certain things. Like, in the Catholic religion, you have the rosary and things like that. I don't know if I still have that book or not. I'll have to look for it. But it had the origins of all these, ordinations and stuff like that. But yeah, in Christianity, there's nothing unique. Baptism's not unique. The Eucharist is not unique at all. There was in Egyptian religion, they drank beer. They drank beer and wheat. It was around the harvest time.
Well, I mean, like for the Eucharist, even the Bible itself says that it's in the order of Melchizedek. So it's like it's not claiming to be new in that case. Yeah. It's just that the religious significance of it is different.
Yeah. And they'll say, the Jewish religion is so much different than its neighboring religions. No, not true at all. I mentioned Passover. Passover, the festival on unleavened bread, all that stuff was Phoenician and or Babylonian rituals that just given new meaning to distinguish Jews from their neighbors. But there's nothing unique about it at all. And it's typical, things evolve, right? Yeah, one group will have a fancy idea, and someone will say, "Oh, I kind of like that," and then they'll adopt it.
Right. Not only that, but the Romans were specifically doing it. They're good at it, and they would see it as a virtue to soak as much culture as they could into their religion from the polytheistic days, and that carried over into their Christian practice, where they would start being xenophilic with other cultures that they bumped into, and the Roman practice of converting people into a Roman citizen by adopting their religious traditions only came naturally to Roman Christianity, where they would do the same thing. It's evidenced by the morphing of Christian practices throughout the Roman Empire.
I think there's a fair difference between synergism and doctrinal development. It's one thing to say, like, the Romans literally would just absorb other belief systems whole, so long as they could adapt it enough to, give unto Caesar. But well, that's not the right phrase. But
I don't. No, that's Christian thing, but there's as long as it was able to recognize the power of Rome.
Yeah, that's it. That's a better way of putting it.
And that's fine. It's like you would absorb it into the Roman model.
Yeah, but in the case of doctrinal development, like you have like, the unique thing to the Jews is the idea. It's just that they represent it by means of these other ways. And the same thing with Christianity, largely like, there are certain ideas which are unique to Christianity, like, Trinity. Well, Trinity's not unique in a strict sense, but I can't really say that.
Yeah, Trinity's not unique.
Yeah, well, I'm like, depends on how the Trinity is a weird idea. Like
the 3-in-1 entity and the way that the Christians look at it is unique. But the having triune gods
the idea
pop up all over the place.
But it's like there's a difference between modalism versus Trinitarianism, and the different.
Yeah. Like usually when you have a 3-in-1 entity it's usually modalistic in some way.
Yeah, whereas so
the Morrigan, for example, is modalistic.
So like you have ideas like Trinitarianism, hypostatic union, and the Eucharist, which are pretty much unique to Christianity in their ideology, not in the way they're not in the fact that they use these particular means to present a religious idea.
You might be able to say that the Trinity was palatable to Northern Europeans because of other triune goddesses or gods.
Yeah, I would agree.
But how
can you see the difference?
Influenced, or is the idea unique? I think there's aspects about the Trinity that's unique, and there's other aspects about it that might be appropriated or that are similar enough to other religions where it's like,
that's why
they would accept that.
Every religion is unique in its own way, obviously, because if they were all the same, they were going to be one religion, right? So, all put
Christianity is unique in that it has Jesus, right? That's
different names for similar gods. Really.
Like the ideas are very different. Like triunity is weird. Like it had like a modalistic God does not have the logical problem of the Trinity. Modalism doesn't have that logical problem.
Well, because the Trinity was just a bad compromise for to solve a theological problem.
I think the
political is that it is unique. It is uniquely Christian.
I think
the same thing with hylomorphism. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing: the compromise is uniquely Christian, but the two ideas that became the compromise are not uniquely Christian.
Yes, if you view it as a compromise, like you could argue that these ideas had already pre-existed in some sense. But if you the Christian
3-in-1 in the way that we modernly see it was not a thing before the compromise.
Yeah,
that's the thing where you would have to find evidence of people seeing the Trinity in this way before I think it's Council of Nicaea, where they were like, it's a Trinity. But before that, nobody saw it that way. It was like people saw it one way or the other, and then they were like, well, let's do both, and then you get that.
Let's just call it. They say let's call it a mystery and call it a day. I mean, that's what basically happens.
Right.
But the only thing I wanted to bring in was the distinction between synergism, which is like truly the adopting of other views and forcing them to align with yours, whereas doctrinal development, which is similar but different, which is more like.
That's not how theology describes it.
I think you're talking about syncretism, but
syncretism, that's the right word. Syncretism. Yeah. Sorry.
Synergism is what I am, which is believing that faith without works is dead, and I argue more of a Catholic position than a average evangelical. That's synergism.
I meant that's because you are a Catholic, aren't you?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm probably
everyone's Catholic.
Everyone's Catholic.
I thought that everyone that it wasn't a real Christian in the eyes of the fundies was automatically a Catholic.
We'll call you a Catholic.
My bad.
That sounds right.
Frank is definitely a
Catholic.
Well, I know Frank's a Catholic.
Yeah, but I did mean syncretism. I apologize for that.
You are a better Catholic. I am.
And Floyd?
I was just
hold on, Frank. Hold on. With the Christmas oysters, I was just looking it up here. That's actually an Irish American thing. Catholics, or at least more traditional Catholics, will abstain from eating meat on Christmas Eve. So you would default to eating fish. When the Irish came to America, they couldn't find the what's called ling to use to make whatever they were eating in Ireland, but they could find oysters. So they made soup from that.
Keep the win.
and that's where you get your Christmas oysters from.
So I think one of the big differences with Christianity is the idea that of grace, and the idea of that the sacrifice where you do not know where you stand with this God, and you have to give this God something because you never know how you stand, would be different than the surrounding nations around them. I see actually Christianity as being different than. I mean, does Odin offer grace?
I just said BRB.
I mean, you can say any God offers grace, but but as long as it's conditional, there's conditions put upon it. So it still boils down to, if you obey this God, he will reward you. If you disobey this God, he will punish you. I don't see how Christianity is any different.
That's
Yeah, plus on top of
that,
I just want to
have to reward you. But he's just giving you conditions. Do this, obey, and I will reward you. I don't have to. I could wipe you out right now, but in my good grace, I won't do that. But I still demand you to meet my conditions to receive the benefits of my charity. So I don't buy the
plus the idea that your actions on the mortal plane aren't realized until you face some type of judgment at the end of it is not a unique concept of Christianity as well. If you take a look at the Egyptian religions, where they had
you muted out.
Nope, socket dropped.
He dropped.
He's probably on a phone. He got Google quaked.
Was that a Google quake?
Oh, here he is.
Yeah. Sorry, I was saying the idea that your actions on the mortal plane won't be realized until after you die, where you face some type of judgment by the gods, is not a concept that's unique to Christianity. You can trace that back to the Egyptian mythos as well, where they weigh the heart compared to that of a feather because of all the bad deeds that you've accrued over the course of your life. That's another example of how a form of judgment that you're weighed upon afterwards, and that is a concept that you find across a lot of other religions. I'm pretty sure even within with Ocean, you could probably testify this, is that I'm pretty sure there's some type of trial for whether or not you get to fight in Valhalla or where the fuck you believe.
There's definitely.
Yeah, Ocean could speak of Valhalla, and the warriors go to Valhalla for their bravery in battle and so forth.
There's 5 or 6 afterlives in the Norse belief system, so it's there's definitely different conditions for each one, and then there's another that's a catch-all. So,
but this Christianity says, oh well, it's unique because it's not based, it's based on grace alone.
It's obtaining the grace is still a work. So
yeah,
it's interesting kind of how the Christians kind of play with that idea, because if it's grace and not works, then everyone receives it anyway. Then you would want to go into true universalism, that everybody goes to heaven immediately and there is no punishment because the infinite sacrifice of Jesus is sacrificed for everybody. But a lot of Christians don't accept that. They think that you have to actually make the action of accepting, which would still be a work, which means that it's not.
I guess perhaps in Calvinism.
Catholicism is better.
Calvinism, I guess, is pure grace, because in Calvinism, Yahweh just picks his elect, right? And it's based on nothing what they did, but it's totally arbitrary.
But what they will do is because they've received grace. So
nature, pretty much.
Yeah, it's both election and reprobation are purely unconditional under Calvinism, and there's no criteria at all. The Calvinist God is a very arbitrary God. Who's elect and who's reprobate, purely out God's wishes. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You're saved, you're not. You're saved, you're not. You're saved. It's, whatever pleases the Calvinist God, that's the way it goes. He is the standard, and this is whatever pleases him. And we're just clay to be molded.
the way that Calvinists have often told me, it's like you don't hold what's the writer for Game of Thrones? The Game of
Martin?
Thrones. What is his name? Martin.
I don't know.
It's Tolkien.
J.R. Mountain.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, so like you don't hold him responsible for all the death and destruction in Game of Thrones because he's just merely the author. And I'm like, what? Like, I do. When I get mad about something, I do blame him.
Yeah, well, Calvinism. Yeah, we're sock puppets. We're sock puppets. God. It's like God's playing. War with. Remember when you're kids, those little plastic soldiers. You buy a whole big bucket of them. It'd be plastic soldiers. And I remember, we would get bored and we'd take a lighter or a match and we'd melt them and stuff like that. For fun.
With the childhood.
Yeah, and that's what the Calvinist God's like. He's just playing in a sandbox, with his toys, and some he likes, some he doesn't. Why? Whatever, wherever the wind blows. There's no rhyme and reason. There's no criteria. He's just whatever pleases him, he does. He's just a dictator, and where it meets his fancy, that's the way it goes.
Is the term voluntarism, or am I mixing that with
what's the term?
Voluntarism, I think.
Voluntarism?
I think that's
voluntarism.
Yeah, as opposed to and I haven't studied the term.
I've heard that term before. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I've heard voluntarism before, but
I think it has something to do with what you were talking about, but it might be too general a term or too specific or something. I know it's often related to Occam, I think. So and nominalism, but it's like sorry. I think it's like opposed to intellectualism or something like that, which is like the view that it's like God's will is prior to his wisdom, or his wisdom is prior to his will, or something. I don't know.
Well, theology is always interesting. It's just
it's the study of God, but I mean, I think if a theist is honest, whether they're a fundamentalist or liberal or moderate, I think that if we look at creation, especially if you're not a flat earther, if you look at creation and in the universe, then if you believe that God created the universe, and you look at just the depths of creation, then you've got to think that there's depths of God that we just don't understand, and that we would have to appeal to the mystery of God, because God's very creation is mysterious.
So the doctrine that the will is fundamental or dominant factor in the individual or the universe.
Yeah. Sounds about right. God just chooses, sort of. Though, I mean, some Calvinists will say for reasons which are sufficient for him, or something like that. So that I think some will, append that, and so perhaps their extra bit that might be like the appeal to mystery. I don't know if that's inconsistent.
Well, don't they say that God has a revealed will, and then he has a? It's not. I don't think they don't call it hidden will. I forget what they call it. Was it?
Secret will?
One more time.
Secret will?
Yeah, maybe secret will. But in the view as well, obviously God's not revealed everything to us, right? So yeah, or concealed will, yeah.
Is it sovereign will, or?
Well, everything he does is sovereign. But obviously God's not revealed all of his intentions and all of his will to us, right? Because obviously we're limited and he's infinite. So yeah, there's a concealed will, or a will that he has not revealed to man. But they claim that will does not contradict or conflict with his revelation. Yeah, we just simply don't know. I mean, it starts to border on skeptical theism at that point.
Is it hidden will? Is that right?
Hidden will, I think.
Hidden will, or I forget. There's a precise term for it, but I forget what it is.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of R.C. Sproul's terms. Well, whatever. I feel like I've diverted the conversation because I think
it comes from Thomism as opposed to Calvinism. You'll see a lot of interlink, like flip-flops between Thomism and Calvinism. Aquinas.
Yeah, Calvinism is closer to Thomism than, say, Arminianism, and then Arminianism is closer to what's the other one? Molinism. Right, those are the four major doctrines of salvation.
Molinism is pretty close to it.
What'd you say?
I think Molinism is closer to Thomism than Calvinism.
Yeah, that's what I said. So, what you think Molinism is closer to Calvinism than Thomism?
I mean, Molinism is closer to Thomism than Calvinism, I think.
I would agree. So like, what you have roughly is Arminianism on one end and Calvinism on the other end. And Calvinism is like, next to Calvinism would be Thomism, and then on the other side would be Molinism, and then Arminianism. So, in that order, sort of. So Calvinism, Thomism, Molinism, and Arminianism, and sort of that, all of them having to do with the relationship between grace and free will.
Yeah, almost all Arminians and Catholics that aren't Molinists, and maybe not even familiar with Thomism, a lot of them don't talk about providence and that God intercedes, is interesting. So they do acknowledge that God can interrupt and intercede and change the directions of certain situations. Our will can't supersede God.
Yeah, there's a view between Molinism and Thomism, and I can't remember what it's called. Like, I think it's just like a eclecticism or something. It's like that's like a term that has multiple meanings. But I'll look at it. I apologize for diverting the conversation to theology. This is my fault. What were we talking about before I ruined the conversation?
I think your original OP was the origins of Christmas traditions.
Yeah.
I got a question for that though. Yeah, just to get Ocean and whoever else's feedback on that. Is that, let's say that throughout the first century, Christianity was not something that was widely available in public. That people were scorned for Christian beliefs, that there was a persecution against Christians at that time. And then let's say that when Constantine kind of switched, they converted over to Christianity, and if we were to use the explanation of the Roman holidays being incorporated as Christian holidays at that point in time, why just that one? If you take a look at like how many major Christian holidays there are, outside of Easter and Christmas, you don't really see a lot, but yet we know that the Romans celebrated a lot more holidays than just that. A lot of more festivals and feasts and all this other stuff. That it would seem that the fact that they didn't incorporate like a Christian spin on every holiday as maybe evidence that that this one was something that existed prior.
Actually, Catholicism and Orthodoxy have tons of feast. Both of them, they're completely tied to the calendar. And like if you were to talk to Max or you were to talk to an Orthodox like Gambler or Gretchen, they'll go, it's the feast of this and it's the feast of that and it's the feast of this. And I can't keep track of them. I'm not very good at it because, like I said, like my family's Catholic, but I'm not Catholic. But there's tons and tons of feasts and stuff, and it's all calendar year. And the liturgy goes along with it. It goes all along with it.
Okay, well then I retract my statement, and I thank the Spackle for again showing that Christianity is wrong. I'm just joking.
Well, yeah, Catholicism and like so when it comes to the liturgy, liturgical calendar, it's like I don't understand it. It's there's a lot of info there.
I'm not familiar with liturgy, except for like the times when I've attended mass with my grandmother or someone's died, and occasions like that, because I've been mostly involved in the evangelical side of things. But it is interesting a Catholic will go through the entire Bible in a year because of the liturgy. If they go to Mass every Sunday, they will go through the entire Bible by accident because of liturgy. And then the interesting thing is they don't have the spin on it that the Protestants have on the personality of the pastor and topical cultural things. Like they're very almost purist in that way. As much as a evangelical will attack Catholicism and Orthodoxy for relics and symbols and idolatry, they're missing the idolatry that you'll find in evangelical circles with the programs and the personalities and the pastors and the promises that pastors make about blessings, and it's missing that kind of stuff.
The entire point of the Catholic Mass is the sacrifice of the Eucharist. The Eucharist is looked on like sacrificing a lamb. Right? It literally is sacrifice. So it's like it's supposed to be a really solemn ceremony, and like I think ordinary time is a bit more loose on that end, but like, you know, it's all that. So like you want to look at old sacrificial practices, like so you can actually look in the Catholic Encyclopedia and search up sacrifice, and they have just like this whole theory. Like at the bottom, like it's 3 sections. The first section is the old sacrificial things, and then there's Jewish sacrifice, and then there's Christian sacrifice. Like and at the end, it's the theory of sacrifice, which is hilarious because there's like a whole freaking theory of it because they're really serious about this stuff. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also cool. But like it was hilarious in the sense that I didn't expect it when I learned about it. But at the beginning of the Catholic Encyclopedia article on sacrifice, it literally says that you don't have to pay attention to Buddhists and Protestants because they don't actually sacrifice anything. They don't actually I thought this is like the Catholic Encyclopedia can be harsh. So I don't know, but that's all related. Yeah, like that's I think that's the ultimate reason is that the Protestants they'll speak of like a sacrifice of praise as opposed to like an actual sacrifice of the Eucharist, or like they don't. I mean, I think some groups, I think Lutherans might like any Protestant that has an altar alongside there, like you have the pulpit, but there's also the altar, and like there's both in a Catholic church. You'll have a pulpit, but like in the center there's a freaking altar, like an actual altar, like where you sacrifice lambs. But you don't sacrifice a lamb on it; you sacrifice the body of Christ, and so it's cool.
I don't know if a Protestant sees it as a sacrifice for the most part. I would have to look into Anglicans.
Yeah, I think it differs between. I think Lutherans and Anglicans and like anyone who believes in the real presence or something like that will.
Right.
But those who think it's just a symbol don't. And.
Right. And if you notice when you go to a Protestant or evangelical church, Jesus is usually off the cross. And the argument is that because, it's sort of like when Jesus was like, hey, why do you seek the living among the dead? Duh. In that he's resurrected, that he's not still there. And then the Catholics are really focused on the actual suffering of Christ, which is some people find really morbid. But I think it's interesting because I guess I kind of have a middle ground on that one, but I don't know. By the way, on the Naked Bible group, I did appreciate your comments with the guy that was extremely uncharitable and probably a troll.
Oh, me? That was like, okay. One comment. It's like, I don't need to address this much. You don't understand Catholicism.
Apparently he's afraid of vaginas.
That was weird. And I don't think anyone is understanding what we're talking about.
No, he was showing pictures of Mary and she looked like a vagina the whole time. It was great. So, is Ocean there? Oh, he's not there.
I just see like Floyd's face. It's like
I know, he's like, what?
He looks very amused by this conversation.
I know. I would wonder what Floyd would do in the Naked Bible group.
I never. What is that? I never heard of that.
Oh, it's like
study or?
No. It's a group which is basically owned by Heiser, like Michael Heiser.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know Michael Heiser. Yeah,
yeah, he has a group.
Michael he tries to be like, you know, objective and stuff, but then he always has to. He can never go all the way. He always has to, like, you know, try to reassure people. Yeah, like. Yeah, the ancient Israels did believe the Earth was flat and stuff like that, but you know, but we can see it this way. We can see it this way. Well, no, just see it the way they saw it. Don't try to put your own spin on it. He does that time and time again. It really frustrates me.
What do you think of Solo's way of doing it? So he sort of mixes concordism with a worldview.
Oh yeah, I can't stand concordism.
Of course you can.
Well, yeah, I mean, General and I had a debate over Noah's flood.
You think it's global, right?
Oh no, I don't think it was global.
Well, you think they thought it was global?
Yeah. Well, no.
Well, not global.
The Bible. Well, you can watch the debate. It was on, I guess, Steve McCrae's channel. I guess it's on. But no, they believed in a flat Earth, so it wasn't global; it was worldwide, right? So it was a, you know, the floodgates opened from the firmament, and also the fountains from above, and that's what flooded the flat Earth, and it was, you know, it was definitely a worldwide description. Of course, you know, they thought they viewed the world as an air bubble, or like a inverse snow globe, right?
Yeah, kind of like a concave
Yeah.
flat Earth.
So to take that and to say, oh, it was just a local flood. No, that's not what the Bible describes at all.
Well, I mean, like, I think the idea is that the Bible is an attempt. Well, never mind, I'll shut up. I'm always going to, like, defend Solos, but, like,
concordism is this is trying to reinterpret the Bible to fit, you know, our modern scientific understanding. It's not an honest way at all to interpret the Bible.
I mean, like, that's not what, like, Solo is doing, though. Like, I mean, as I said, he's sort of mixing it with the worldview approach. So, like, he'll say, look, this is the worldview they had at the time, and God exists. So, you know, he's going on the presumption that God exists. He said, well, God exists, and so God is attempting. You know, he has that thought experiment. Like, you know, if you were trying to convey these things in the terms the people at the time can understand, then what would it do? And, like, well, the people, I don't think, you know, maybe God didn't. Maybe because all the various different goals God had at once, he couldn't really convey to them that it was on a globe. So instead, he used their terminology or something like that.
Why couldn't he do that? You know, they weren't dumb back then. They were, you know, perhaps they were ignorant, perhaps they were superstitious, but they weren't dumb. They could easily understand that the Earth was round. Concordism is. You know, I really don't think it's an honest way to go about interpreting the Bible at all.
Now that Ocean's back, he missed our conversation about communion. Ocean and I, in a conversation, he said that communion was like LARPing with cannibalism.
Yeah, it's LARPing ritual cannibalism. In the case of Protestants, in the case of Catholics, it is ritual cannibalism.
It just gets watered down over time.
That's what the Romans believed of Christians.
Yeah, they did. Like, they were accused of cannibalism, but there was one of the apologists, the early apologists, that would actually counter that. I don't remember who, like, yeah, like I don't actually know. Like, the theology is sort of hard for me to follow. But when there is a change in substance, but the accidents persist. So, like, the idea is that whatever effect that you don't have the effect of the accidents of human flesh upon the person, but you are eating, you know, I guess a trend. I don't know if the bread is taken to be hypostatically unified, but the idea is that. So substance is that which underlies the accidents. It's what, you know, it's quid est. What is it? What is the thing? And so you know,
it's transformed into the essence of Christ. It's not physically transformed.
Physicals think that it physically transforms into the blood and body of Christ.
No, it's not
the trans whatever.
Substantiation. The
transubstantiation
are the things which aren't changing, right? The form is the visible, the sensible accidents, or the the intelligible species, the stuff that you see. That's not changing, right? That would be a transformation. You see the change.
Right, but one of the miracles that is counted as evidence for this is like there was some biscuit that's got like some heart matter in it or something like that, and it's just like this is a miracle because it's something that happened without the actual like before the consumption or after the consumption of the material. Like it's a very much of a kind of an appeal to mystery that it literally does this transformation.
Well, I thought it's just the essence. It's not like if someone throws up, they wouldn't be flowing up,
Right. So
blood,
maybe
flesh.
Catholics LARP cannibalism ritually as well. I don't know, but
it's supposed to be the essence where that means.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's like so. How do I explain this?
It's woo.
Well, it's
That's how you explain
it. I have respect for it a bit more because I'm more philosophically inclined, and there's like it uses philosophical terminology and whatnot to try to explain something. So like an example would be, and like there are actual formal changes, but like when somebody dies, at the moment of death, right? Like their bodies, if there is such a thing as a moment of death, but like there's this fuzzy space between death and life where there isn't much physical difference, but it's no longer the individual; it's a corpse. So you would say that the substance itself has changed, and the forms have mostly stayed the same. So the substance of the you have a human, and they look exactly the same the moment after death, if there is a moment, if it's right to speak that way. So they look the same. So in the same way, the bread looks the same throughout. It has all the same properties. Again, it's not strictly true of a corpse, but like it has most of the same things. Rigor mortis hasn't set in yet. All these processes are just now ending. So too with the accidents of the bread and wine. What it is different, even though almost everything about it is the same. There is one thing which is different, and it's not that person anymore. It's the corpse of that person. That person is gone. So the person, the individual is no longer connected to that body, if you want to put it that way, because they're not there anymore. If you're an atheist, or well, depending on your view, there's all kinds of philosophy of mind stuff that surrounds that idea. So again, corpse. The transition from person to corpse is similar, though not identical, to transubstantiation, because there is a change in substance. It just so happens that there is also a very small change in accidents, namely the brain activity slows down, or the brain activity is stopping when you die, assuming that there isn't any other changes like your arm being lopped off. In the same way, when the Catholics believe that when you say hoc est habeam corpus, this is my body. At that moment, the something quite the reverse happens. It's almost as though you have what is bread, and it stops being bread; it becomes flesh. Even though everything about it stays consistent in a way very comparable to, but not identical to, the way that when somebody dies, the person goes away, but the corpse persists, and all that's left becomes a corpse, even though everything looks almost exactly the same.
I still don't know why they're eating their god. I just don't get it.
That's part of divinization, or
right, they're the only ones that do that.
It's
weird. Are
you familiar with the doctrine of theosis? Or well, it's not really a doctrine, but it's like
I get that they have explanations for it. That they try to break it down and all that jazz. It's just like, from the perspective of religious history, ritualized cannibalism or LARPing ritualized cannibalism is just very strange. And it's one of the things that just makes Christianity kind of gross to me, that they're worshiping their God and they got to eat it.
Well, you're participating.
Well, they also had to, you guys would know better than this. When the ancient, like the sacrificial rituals of like lambs and whatnot, I know the Jews ate the lambs, or they would eat the lamb and whatnot afterwards.
Yeah, you don't waste the damn. All right, so they would. The sacrifice was part of the meal. It's like cheers, You clink your glass and you pour a little bit out of it to the gods, and then you drink the thing. With the lamb, usually the blood would be used for some ritual or whatever, but you don't eat that stuff. You eat the meat, and so you drain the animal that was sacrificed. The blood is used in whatever ritual, and then you have your meal, because you don't waste the rest of it, because that's disrespectful to the god that's being sacrificed to, unless it's a purely burnt offering, at which point then everything is burned and you actually send all of that, like the smoke carries it up to the heavens, according to some interpretations of it. But I don't practice burnt offerings. I don't know anybody that does. But no, that was a thing in early Near Eastern cultures, was burning everything, and it like the whole offering would then go up to heaven and go to Yahweh, where Yahweh would eat some lamb or some shit. But yeah,
I think the idea is like there's this sort of, and my thoughts aren't well developed on this point, so don't take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm gonna take everything I say with a grain of salt. My thoughts are never fully developed, but you have this idea roughly that when it came to like I guess free will offerings or something like that. I don't know what. Actually, I'm not going to talk about it. I need to read more on it. Never mind. The point is, like, roughly speaking, I think there's supposed to be an analogy of some sorts between the Hebrew, the Israelite sacrificial rituals, and what's going on in the Catholic rituals. It's unique to itself in a way, but it's their idea is that the old sacrifices were sort of preparing for this in some sense, like there's the idea of typology in theology. Like Christ is the Lamb of God, right? You have that idea, so he's a sacrificial lamb,
right?
Just like you eat the lamb, you eat Christ, because he is.
I guess it's just that he's a human, and that's weird. Like there's, maybe they're not the only. Tyler's bringing up that there's some other religions that actually do some kind of cannibalistic ritual regarding gods. It's uncommon as fuck, but I'm not aware of any other practices of it. Maybe I'm willing to be open to the idea that there are, and maybe some of them influence Christianity in some way. But my thing is that you seem to be saying something about it not being cannibalism when the accusation is that it's ritualized cannibalism, and I don't think anything that you're saying is countering that.
Yeah, it's communal cannibalism. You're participating in the divine. You're
right. I see that what he was saying. He's trying to explain like the thought process behind it, but all that does is just confirm what I'm saying, is that it's either ritualized cannibalism or LARPing ritualized cannibalism.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I don't object to cannibalism. The term cannibalism is cannibalism. It's
and I'm against cannibalism. I know Christians aren't, but I am.
Meat's meat, man's got to eat.
Generally, I'm against cannibalism. I don't view it as cannibalism. I view it as more of a symbolic thing or an essence thing if I was transubstantiation. But substantiation, I can never say that. Now that Frank can't say the word, and I'm like, no, I can't say the word, but I usually can. But yeah, they I don't view it as literal nom nom nom. I'm actually morbidly afraid of cannibals. Like, it's actually one of my things.
That Mike Myers character. Get in my belly.
Like Ravenous creeped me the hell out, that movie.
Like, I think the Catholic answer is going to be ultimately based on the idea that the accidents are not human flesh, are not like, you do not have the accidents of flesh and blood. You have the substance of flesh and blood, and so you're not actually chewing anything that's Like you are you are eating.
Same case with Protestants, but I still, eat, this is my body. It becomes LARPing ritualized cannibalism.
Yeah, like the body blood.
If you want to start trying to explain that it's not actually cannibalism, then fine. It's just the other thing. That it's still a ritual around eating their god, symbolically or not. Like,
why is it needed at all?
Yeah, that's another thing I don't get.
Well, I guess it's to put you in a proper mindset, right? That's all this stuff.
That's the case with most ritual, but Christians are trying to say that there's some kind of necessity. Like a lot of when churches deny you communion, there's especially Catholic churches or Orthodox churches, that has to do with actually cutting you off from God. So it's like getting your communion is supposedly, or under some understandings, extremely important.
Oh yeah, it's fundamentally
to do with your salvation.
Yeah, it's sort of.
You gotta eat your Jesus.
Yeah, the idea it's not that it's necessary for salvation per se, but it gives you the graces necessary for it gives you graces which make salvation much easier.
Yeah, that's the part that I don't get.
Cutting you off from the tree of life, just like they would, just like Yahweh did with Adam and Eve. Kicked them out of the garden, kept them away from the tree of life, so they wouldn't live forever.
But no, you can be in a what they call state of grace without having eaten the Eucharist. In fact,
Tyler brought up a good point. It's aside from cannibalism, it's a reenactment of human sacrifice in order to scapegoat someone for their sins. Which,
well, that would be true. It would be a scapegoat if, in fact, we intentionally did it, but supposedly this is gifted to us, right? So,
so Christ sacrifices himself. He is both priest and victim, so and receiver as well. So, so it's kind of weird that way. You can't say that anyone but Christ sacrificed Christ, which is sort of in line with the idea that this. So.
But we are partakers in his death, though, right? Because if you've sinned, you killed Jesus, pretty much. But I mean, really, every time. I mean, there's no other reason why Jesus dies except to cover for sin, right? So every human that sins that Jesus dies for.
Yeah, but they don't sacrifice him. Only a priest can sacrifice, and only Christ was the priest, right? He's the priest in the order of Melchizedek, kind of idea. So we do not. So Christ, by means of the cross, sacrifices himself. Right? He could have gone down at any moment. In fact, that was actually sort of screamed at him by the Pharisees. If he right before, like if he's ministered by the angels, then let him come down from the cross or something like that.
Yeah, they asked him to, and so I mean, yeah, absolutely, it was. It would be.
Ian Spackle talking theology.
I know, right?
I'm actually looking at a.
Doesn't help that I'm delusional on Dayquil. But
yeah, yeah. I think that it's fair to say that you can't call it cannibalism in a literal sense, and if you called it cannibalism in an analogical sense, it would only be the only reason you would do so would be derogatorily or because you don't understand it. So, because you can fairly say it's like, the doctrine of analogical language roughly says that no, that's not right. You say God is more like this than that, and so, or this act is more like, it's not the same. It's not the same as cannibalism, but it's like cannibalism, but it's more like not cannibalism than it is like cannibalism. And
Frank, I need you to convert from Catholicism.
Hilarious.
Like you got an echo now.
I am in the defending Catholic shoes right now.
I can tell you're deep in them, man.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like semi-defensive of Catholics. Like when it comes to idiots like that are just slamming them back and forth, it's like, well, there's a lot of good things that Catholics do, but at the same time, there's a lot of things in the Catholic Church that I just can't get behind, and Orthodoxy seems so much more appealing. Just, I don't know. Orthodoxy makes more sense to me. Read about the Great Schism if you haven't, Frank.
Yeah, I tend to eventually, but I'm yeah, like it's one I'm very bad at history, but I do have to read about it.
I think Orthodoxy makes so much better sense. Their understanding of the fall, and they don't believe in original sin in the same way. And it meshes to me a lot better with
Catholics and Orthodox believe the exact same thing on original sin, so far as I can tell. Like everyone will say that the Catholics believe that there is guilt, but they're using it. They're literally using the word guilt analogically. So it's like
no. There's ancestral
sin.
Ancestral sin, and you wouldn't think that means what it means in Orthodoxy. You think ancestral sin simply means that you're inheriting sin, but actually that's not what it means. It means like sin is like a sickness upon the world, and that you.
Yeah, the Catholics mean pretty much the exact same thing.
No. See, your very nature is evil. Like it's very similar to Calvinism in that way. Your nature is evil. It's not that you're sick. You are messed up.
No, Catholics believe that sin introduced. Well, no, that actually might not be. I'm thinking of concupiscence, but like the stain. You might be right. I have to look that up. I don't think my intuition is.
I'm gonna head out, guys. So I'll see you guys later.
Oh yes, yeah.
All right.
Sorry for.
I think we hijacked the hangout, and I'm a little bit weak because I'm sick. So. Anyway, I think it's funny because Ocean does call it cannibalism. And I just think it's funny because that was the charge that the Romans had when they were killing Christians. Back when the Romans were pagans.
I can't believe there's actually still 60 people watching right now.
What?
Are you guys like really this bored? Because I've been listening for the last 10 minutes and I was about ready to kill myself. No, I love you guys. It obviously, but it's hard to have a conversation with only 3 people, and I'm fading. You wouldn't believe. So I don't know what to do because a lot of people are still listening to this. I don't know what. Either that or they're just in the live chat fucking with each other. It could be that too.
They're most likely doing that.
Yeah, they tend to do that. It doesn't matter what the hell you guys are talking about in here. The live chat always finds a way to have a conversation.
Well, the other thing is too. I mean, your only choice on Sunday nights is Bible thumping wingnut or Netflix. I mean, like
there's the atheist marathon earlier, but that's over.
Yeah,
I want to just keep it open just for live chat, so they can just kind of like have a conversation on live chat. I don't particularly care one way or another. I mean, I'm happy to do that, but
I can't. I'm not gonna lie. I've done that before, where I get in live chat. Like most of the time, if Shanny's having like a chat, I mute her half the time, and then they go blah 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 in the chat.
Well, I do got to Captain Griffin in the live chat. I got to get with him at some point, and I want to have a conversation with him. So I probably have to end this if he's available. But Captain Griffin, when do you want to do your thing tonight with me? Well, that sounded a lot more dirty than I intended. Yeah, Geek Room, we're still going. You ever wonder what this like for the people that watch these videos after the fact when we start talking about like what's going on in the live chat? Because obviously I don't record the live chat on some of these hangouts like this.
Hey Steve, what would you think like of adding like a new section for like rhetoric, style, linguistics, philology, that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, wouldn't a lot of that fall under philosophy, rhetoric?
It might be seen that way, and like, my motivation for asking this largely is that, like, well, no, rhetoric wouldn't really be philosophy. I mean, Aristotle was. Sorry, I should answer straight.
That would be nice.
my motivation is largely, like, you know how they have there's a lot of word debates that go on, and I was trying to think of like maybe there's a way to like those debates are pretty much inevitable now. So I'm thinking maybe if we could like group them with a whole bunch of other different types of debates then that were similar and are maybe about style, for example, or about this is why I say philology, right? The love of words, and maybe if you put them in that context.
I just don't think that requires a whole section devoted to that.
Yeah, I don't want a whole.
I'm fascinated by linguistics. I suck at it. Don't get me wrong, but it is a fascinating topic to say the least. I know a lot of people that are interested in it. Actually, know somebody has a PhD in it, believe it or not, but they're not part of the GDC. But why would you have a separate?
It's not. It wouldn't be like again. I don't want it to like. It would be a bad reason to just have it for those debates, which is why I want to say like. Maybe put it in the context of something, a broader set of ideas. And I've been like racking my brain about, like, I wanted to sell the idea to you, but I just couldn't figure out how. So
there are some communities where they'll have a library section in their community where you can like link stuff, but then it's just like certain mods or whatever that can put it in the library, so it's not like going to be graffitied all over. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, just like curiosity, you guys hear this a lot that philosophy is the basis of science, because I don't think I agree with that. So we just put that in the live chat. I don't actually agree with that at all.
It depends on what you mean by basis.
Well, I mean, you could also argue, philosophy and agriculture is the basis of science.
I mean, sure, you could talk about natural sciences, but I don't think science is a part of philosophy. I think it's migrated to the point completely on its own as a separate entity.
Depends on what you view philosophy as well. So.
I've seen people argue either way. Some people think science is a subset of philosophy, and I understand that because of natural sciences, but I don't particularly look at it that way. And I don't know if that's just a common argument, or if that's just some people looking at it one way, some people looking at another way, or what's the general consensus of that?
I prefer to look at it as a subset of philosophy, but not because, like, I like thinking like I like to kind of like unify things in my mind, and like philosophy is just like really any pursuit of knowledge of really. And where's this echo coming?
I don't have an echo. Yeah, but I don't think science people would put it that way, though.
Well, science people wouldn't. That's the problem. Like, there's this sort of a social like handicap.
Handicap. That's what I would call Aaron Ra.
What?
Yeah. What's that, Floyd?
There's a philosophy of science. I mean, there's philosophy behind it, but
of course, there's a philosophy of science, but that isn't
scientists pick it on the shelf to work.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't remember the name of the philosopher, but he wrote. It's actually, I don't think I ever finished reading it, but a work called What's going to upset me? Well, he brought up this idea of the manifest image versus the scientific image, and he didn't articulate it. And again, I never finished the work, but like the sense I got is that you can view science, or you could view philosophy as like one of the many jobs it has is to sort of try to make a language which bridges the various different fields of science, as well as the humanities, as well as the subfields of philosophy. And so in that sense, science is a subfield of philosophy, and that everything is a subfield of philosophy, because philosophy's job is to make everything communicate with each other. If you look at it that way. So
it might be a little overreaching, though. I mean, I'm not arguing one position or another. I just think that the philosophy and science kind of deals with two different things, especially when you start getting into like meta-ethical things and metaphysics. Science.
I wouldn't identify the philosophy of science with science. I would say science and the philosophy of science are two distinct things. But
yeah, I think that everybody would agree on that one.
Yeah, I thought. Okay, sorry.
But I'm not trying to conflate philosophy of science with science. I think they're completely different things. But science as stemming from philosophy, as a subset of philosophy, I'm not sure I'm on board with that. I'm willing to hear arguments either way, though. I mean, maybe argue either way.
Kant had this like so.
I think Floyd's trying to get in, but his Floyd. One sec, Frank. Is your mic working, Floyd? Because
I'm working at the same time as Hangout, so I mute myself every now and then.
Okay.
I mean, science uses
later, Holy Spock.
I mean, it uses inferences and stuff like that. So, obviously it uses deduction and induction and abduction. So, I mean, I can't say, I don't think you can say they're exclusive from each other.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that they're definitely not exclusive.
No, I mean, there's obviously relation between the two, and there's obviously overlap. But I hear a lot that people say, science is a subset of philosophy, and I'm still mulling over that one.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I'll just I'm not going to be able to argue for it because the reason I agree is largely just my definition of philosophy is pointlessly broad.
Yeah, once you go that broad, everything falls into philosophy. That's why if you go to Wiki, every link eventually will get you back to philosophy, right?
Before I leave, I think I lost your link. I'm scrolling through trying to find it. Wait, I got it. I found it.
Okay,
cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, everyone, this is coming to a close. It's been a really kind of lethargic day today, and I think everybody's kind of getting a little scratchy in their throat. I've heard it with a few people, and even like my friend Kyle, he was like nasal and congested, and so it's definitely getting to that season. So I suggest everybody just drink some hot toddies tonight with whiskey and what's a good hot toddy drink?
I don't know what that is.
Hot toddy? It's like an alcoholic beverage. Floyd, you're the alcoholic in here. No, I'm just I'm kidding. The person who knows about alcohol. What would you suggest would be a good soothing thing for a throat? With maybe a little honey or something.
Hot toddy. Is that Irish whiskey they put in it, or
I think it's Irish whiskey. Yeah, which I don't have. I got some corn whiskey, which is really actually pretty good, and then I bought some brandy, and I don't like it.
I don't like brandy.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I remember having brandy a long time ago, and it wasn't bad. I got this one type, and it has a weird taste to it.
Yeah, brandy is distilled wine.
Yeah, it's distilled grape juice, basically. Yeah, somebody says hot toddy. Yeah, hot toddy is whiskey, lemon, and honey, right? RSC. Yeah, that's how I remember hot toddy too. And those are good. Those are really, really good. I don't know if they have actual medicinal purposes. RSC, do they? Would you say that a little bit of whiskey, a little bit of lemon and honey is actually beneficial for you medicinally, or is it just more of a placebo and psychological thing? Because I like them. I think
probably whiskey doesn't do anything. I'm looking at a recipe right now. Boiled water, lemon twist.
I've got corn whiskey. I don't know what to put it in because it's harsh straight. It really is.
Yeah, lime juice, and then you can put bourbon, rye, Irish whiskey, or Scotch in it. So basically, just throw any alcohol you like in it. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, what can I do with that brandy then? I hate to make it go to waste, but I've had like one small, ounce of it maybe, and it was not that great. Maybe it's better if I mix it or something.
Yeah, I don't like brandy. Something I got into, like with bourbon. I don't drink bourbon neat. I like cocktails, but I like simple cocktails. I usually drink old fashions with bourbon. But I went to a Bobby Flay restaurant, and they had an Applejack old fashioned, which instead of bourbon, it's Applejack, which is kind of like an apple brandy.
Oh, that's not different.
And it's very simple. It's just I do 2 shots of the Applejack, a couple dashes of Angostura bitters, simple, just like a teaspoon of simple syrup. I don't like things too sweet.
Well, Crazy Jeff suggests brandy mixes well with apple cider.
Yeah, it's Lord's Applejack, and it's only $18 a bottle, cheap, and it's pretty good if you like that. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They have apple flavored bourbon now, but I don't care for that at all.
Yeah, no, I like some bourbon, but I used to drink more Scotch because my dad's had, when I was growing up, that was his drink. We had a drink.
I say that listening to you guys talking about alcohol is like listening to like a bunch of kids talking about trading cards. It's I got this alcohol.
There's a lot of different types of alcohol there. I mean, we went to Bevmo the other day. I was like, oh my god, there's this unbelievable amount of different types of alcohol. But
single malt Scotch, you drink neat, or you put a little water in it to open it up.
Yeah, like if I drink whiskey, I do put a little bit, just like a smidge of water in, not really much at all. It just takes nothing more than a few drops, really.
But I don't like bourbon neat. It has a glue flavor to it that I don't like. But if you put some sugar or simple syrup in it, it kills that glue flavor, and it's good at that point.
I'm not big into sugary drinks, though. I like sweet drinks. I mean, I love
I don't like sweet drinks at all. I just want to kill that glue flavor.
Well, I like mixed sweet drinks, but if I have like scotch, it doesn't have to be like sweet or anything.
Oh no, well, scotch. No, I just put a little water in it, open it up, and
yeah, with water.
Well,
I mean, I've got the things I've got to mix right now. I've got milk, I've got ginger ale diet, and diet cola, which is about as diet cola as you get. That 50 cent for like 10 gallons diet cola.
Well, I like instead of a Moscow Mule, which is vodka and ginger beer, there's a Kentucky Mule, which is bourbon and ginger beer.
Oh, that actually sounds pretty good. I like ginger beer.
Yeah. It's called Kentucky Mule. I don't care for vodka. Vodka doesn't have any flavor to it, and it's just basically used to spike a drink. When I drink a spirit, I want to taste mainly the spirit, like a gin and tonic. It really has a good gin flavor. I like the flavor of gin.
I love gin and tonics when I'm flying. I don't ever drink it any other time. I think they're just. But when I'm flying, for some reason, I like gin and tonics.
It's the best gin and tonic I had, and I wouldn't call it a gin and tonic. It was at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant. They put aloe liqueur in it. So I wouldn't actually call it a gin and tonic, but it was really good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, aloe liqueur. I never heard about aloe liqueur, but it was really good.
Deconverted Man asks, is Inspired Philosophy around? No, that was like an hour or two ago. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, the Geek Room has a Discord. We also have a Discord for the Great Debate Community. I don't know if you guys are aware of that yet. Ocean set one up. I think I put the link in the video description. You guys actually can go, and there's a live chat in the Discord. And if somebody wants to start a hangout, you can start a hangout from the Discord. So, but that's on the other channel, the Great Debate Community channel. But I think I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm probably gonna try to make some kind of quick drink just to try to hopefully feel better. We'll see how it goes. You think brandy and Diet Coke would be okay? How bad could it be? Probably pretty nasty, huh? Yeah, I think brandy would probably go better with a sweeter drink like an apple cider, like you said. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Floyd, thanks for dropping by. I mean, sorry you couldn't get here earlier. Would have liked to have you had a discussion with IP, but he'll be back. He is a member of the Great Debate Community. Anything else you guys want to say or do before we wrap it up? By the way, get some likes on here. We got 19 likes, 3 dislikes, which is probably G-Man, Ronnie, and Tommy. But I'm noticing some people are actually sharing the link more, which I do appreciate. I actually have a little thing that tells me if links got shared and where they got shared. It doesn't tell me who, but with the vidIQ, and it kind of gives you it tells you where people are sending the links because you get references from those places. So, but anyways, I got to stick around for a few minutes after I end this. But after that, I will get with whoever it was that I was going to do for that video tonight. Don't forget now. Captain. Yeah, so I can tell you I'm already out of it.
Captain and Coke.
Oh, Captain Morgan and Coke?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Captain Morgan's pretty good. All right, I'm going to end this because I'm just losing my mind. Okay. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll have another hangout tomorrow on something. I just don't remember what. Peace.